And can I welcome everyone to this morning's meeting of the People Scrutiny Committee. Today is the 22nd of July, and can I ask for apologies for absence? I've got Councillor Maria Stevens, who's being subbed by Councillor Peter Strong. Are there any other apologies? No? Okay. Declarations of interest. Should we do that as and when? Yep. Okay. So then I think it might be useful if, at this point, if we actually introduce ourselves. We've got some visitors, both for the open forum and also someone in the public gallery, so it'd be useful for them to see and to hear who we are. So I'll start with myself. I'm County Councillor Jackie Strong, and I am a County Councillor for Cross Ward in Caldicot, and I chair this meeting. Can I pass over to...
Hi, I'm Sue Riley. I am the elected member for Bulwark and Thornwell, and I'm the Vice Chair of this meeting. Thank you.
I'm Hazel Eilert, Scrutiny.
Can I move to the top table?
Good morning, I'm Deb Hill-Howells. I'm the Chief Officer for Infrastructure.
Good morning, Matthew Gatehouse, Chief Officer, People, Performance and Partnerships.
Good morning, Councillor Angela Sandals, Cabinet Member for Equalities and Engagement. Good morning, everybody.
Matt, do you just want to introduce yourself?
Yes, Councillor Matt Sidwell from Mathen Community Council and a parent of Mathen.
I'm Martin Grokert. I'm newly a member of this committee. I'm the County Councillor for Lansdowne Ward in Abergavenny, and this year I'm the Vice Chair of the County Council.
Jan?
Councillor Jan Butler for Goitra Ward.
Councillor Maureen Powell, Pennyval Ward in Abergavenny.
Morning, I'm Councillor Penny Jones and I'm Raglan Ward.
Good morning, County Councillor Louise Brown representing Shire Newton Ward and a guest councillor for this meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Howarth, Lyneth Leal, Gilwyn and Clydach, and main town is Abergavenny.
And I think we've got a couple of people online, so Pete.
Hi, Councillor Peter Strong, representing Roggett, and today deputising as a member of the committee for Councillor Maria Stevens.
Councillor Edwards.
Good morning, everyone. Councillor Christopher Edwards, member for St King's Mark in Chepstow and a member of this committee.
We've also got Freddie Madler, who's joined us online, who is part of the St Arvan's petition group. So thank you, Freddie. So we move on now to the public open forum. So can I ask Lynn to, she's got 3 minutes. You've got 3 minutes, if you wish to take them, to address the committee. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I've already introduced myself, so just further to say in my working life, I had a professional interest in equality law. And I'm very pleased to have this brief opportunity to share with you some of my concerns about public bodies such as the Council and their implementation of the Equality Act 2010. As you know, equality law is not devolved. So when the Supreme Court of the UK back in April judged that sex, as referred to in the Equality Act, means and has always meant biological sex only. Now, a lot of policies have been written and implemented as if, for example, individuals could choose what facilities they used on the basis of a self-declared gender identity. For example, individuals may use facilities which fit their gender identity. That is not the law. So I don't know how much council policies need to be made compliant, because as a member of the public, it's very hard to find out what council policies actually are. You can't find them on the website. But ignorance of the law or a refusal to act because you're waiting for guidance, which is the position of the government in Wales, is no defence for duty bearers such as councils, the police or the NHS. So through the breadth of all the functions of the council, this means that all policies, strategies, codes of practice must be compliant. But that's not enough, because at tribunals and judicial reviews, we do see evidence from minutes, emails, handwritten notes, which do show that even though you might have the right policies, they can be undermined in practice. So just a couple of examples to end. In the last week, we've seen a very high-profile employment tribunal in Scotland where an officer earning nearly £50,000 a year, which seemed to mostly interest the press, admitted in evidence that she'd never heard of the Workplace Regulations 1992, which states that all facilities such as toilets, washing and changing facilities must be on the basis of sex, male, female. And that was the subject of the tribunal she was giving evidence at. So most of you here, I can see, deal with the bigger picture. I imagine you're not on the front line as much, which is often where it can all go wrong. So just a final example, I'm describing a plausible scenario here, which does happen in leisure centres and gyms in Wales. Imagine a member of staff at one of your leisure centres. A female user comes up to her and says, there's a man using the women's showers. There's a group of women outside who won't go in because he's in there. What is she going to do? So it's a difficult situation for that member of staff. Is she trained to know what to do, what to say, to escalate? She has to deal with it, but at the end of the day, it is the council that's the duty bearer and on the front line if a complaint is made. So I'm just hoping that, you will do what you need to do and get on with it if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you for raising really important points that we all need to be aware of, particularly in the light of the April Supreme Court judgment, and making sure that all of our policies and practices in Monmouthshire comply with the UK legislation. So thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. We move on now to the next bit of the open forum, which is the presentation of the petitions, yeah?
No, we'll come on to the petitions later if we just ask these people to speak as well.
Okay, so I think, Freddie, you're going to speak on behalf of the St Arvan's petition, am I right?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
I think you're on mute, so if you want to speak, Freddie.
Now? Yeah?
Yeah, please. Please do. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm here today to raise concerns on behalf of the families in St Arvan's affected by the withdrawal of the home-to-school transport for children aged 4 to 11. The decision has significant consequences emotionally, physically, financially, and it fails to align with the national statutory guidance and Monmouthshire County Council's own policy objectives. The route now expected of the young children exceeds beyond 55 minutes each way. It is unlit, uneven, overgrown and frequently flooded, with conditions worsened in winter. It includes an unsafe crossing point just after a blind bend with insufficient space for buggies, bikes or wheelchairs. Despite this, the route has been classed as available. Under the Learner Traveller Wales Measure 2008, local authorities must ensure that the route is safe and reasonable for a child to walk accompanied as necessary. The statutory guidance for travel to school for children of compulsory age further states that primary age children should not be expected to walk more than 45 minutes each way. The route in question clearly exceeds this and according to guidance, should be assessed by an independent and qualified personnel, which has not been the case. The economic implications of this decision are considerable. Shifting the burden from statutory educational access from the local authority to families is inequitable and unsustainable. The policy disproportionately affects working households and introduces postcode-based inequality. While some children remain eligible for school transport, others, whose home fall literally just outside the threshold, are excluded, despite the bus coming past their previous bus stop. This inconsistency undermines public trust and raises serious questions about fair application of statutory duties. There is also a clear impact on learning. Children undertaking long, physical, demanding journeys are more likely to arrive at school tired, cold, or anxious, reducing their ability to concentrate and engage. These outcomes are entirely at odds with national goals around equity, well-being, and learner readiness. Furthermore, the decision conflicts with Monmouthshire County Council's own climate and active travel objectives. Removing safe transport for primary children inevitably leads to increased car use, emissions and congestion around the school site, undermining the authority's environmental commitments. In conclusion, this policy is not only incompatible with statutory guidance, it is also economically damaging, educationally counterproductive, and environmentally regressive. I urge the Council to review this decision in full and reinstate transport in the interest of equity, safety and policy coherence. Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. Can we move on to Matt? Can you address the committee, please?
Yeah. Hi there, yes, Councillor Matt Sidwell, Chair for Mathen Community Council, and like I said, a parent of Mathen child as well. Similar to what Freddie has said, I'm here to discuss the removal of the free home-to-school transport for Mathen and Pilmerick. We have lodged our stage 1 appeal currently regarding this removal. And are awaiting, obviously, a response back from that. But in addition to what Freddie has mentioned as well, whilst Monmouthshire County Council don't have a legal obligation to consider climate change under the Climate Change Act, in relation to policies, they do need to demonstrate that it is being considered. So how does Monmouthshire County Council intend to demonstrate its obligations under the Act for the additional 30 vehicles twice a day that will be travelling from Mathen and Pilmerick towards the schools, with an average CO2 output of 70 kilograms for a car, where a bus would only give 10 kilograms of CO2 output, for a diesel bus that is, and an electric bus would only give 3 kilograms of CO2. In addition to that, following a ruling or an overturning of the removal in 2023, the route to school was the route to school was deemed unsafe, especially in the location of the A48 and Pilmerick Hill area, and unless changes were made to this safe route, it couldn't be deemed to be safe, yet no changes have actually been made in the 2 years, so we can't see how the policy can change and have the removal of the free home-to-school bus service.
Thank you, Matt. Councillor Jones, do you want to read out the letter that you've received?
Yes.
Or do you want to?
No, I'll read it now in the public forum. Thank
Lovely.
you, Chair. Thank you. I'm reading this letter that I've received on behalf of Councillor Anne Webb, who is behind the petition, but it's from St Albans Community Council and from the Chair, Peter Farley. So it starts, I understand that on behalf of Councillor Webb you will be presenting a petition from residents of St Albans to People's Scrutiny Committee this week about home to school transport. In presenting the petition and in any subsequent discussion by the committee, I would ask you to bear in mind and bring to members' notice the view of St Albans Community Council on this matter. Following a number of informal meetings with parents of children affected by the policy and receiving a delegation from them, the Community Council agreed unanimously at our meeting on the 16th of July to send a letter to the committee conveying our strong support for the petition by our residents. While as a council we share the concerns of the parents and our residents in all respects, we have also considered this matter in the context of our community as a whole. We are particularly mindful of the inequity and potential diversiveness that will arise from a change of policy, together with the impact it may have by making our village less attractive to families with young children who might move here. I trust that you and the members of the committee will find this letter helpful. With kind regards, Peter Farley, Chair, St Albans Community Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. We now go on to receive the petitions. Is that right?
Next item.
Yeah, so the next item on the agenda is the receipt of the petitions.
Okay.
Penny, do you want to present your petition?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I'll go on to the actual petition itself, which, and I'm doing this on behalf, as I say, on behalf of Councillor Anne Webb, who is a member for St Albans. We, the undersigned, petition the Monmouthshire County Council to reinstate the fully funded homeschool transport for all the primary-aged children who attend the Dell School in St Albans. The speed and volume of traffic which the children will be exposed to is a risk. The road crossing is not safe and the footpath is hazardous. Children attending the Dell School from the age of 4 are expected to walk up to 2 miles each way. The emotional and physical stress of this walk, in all weathers, will negatively impact their mental health, physical health, and ability to effectively engage with their learning when in school. There are major safety concerns from the children and parents around the safety of the road crossing and footpath they are expected to walk. The crossing is not suitably lit or wide enough. The path is unlit, uneven and extremely narrow in parts, with a close proximity to a high number of cars. In the case of an emergency, there is a section of the footpath which is obscured from view from the road, with no easy way to access if needed. The children and parents have safety concerns with regards to walking past the racecourse on race day and the days following. This petition was started by Frederica Madler. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Penny. Councillor Brown, are you going to present the next petition?
Yes, thank you. This is the Mother Community Area petition on home to school transport policy. Basically, it's received 222 signatures in all, and I believe another 7 have been added. That is a very high proportion of the people who live in the Mother Community Council area. We've made sure that only the people who live in that area have actually signed. There's only 450 electors on the register, so it is a high number who support this petition across our community. We, the undersigned, petition the Monmouthshire County Council to retain free home to school transport to the Dell Primary School and to the Chepstow Comprehensive School for the pupils from the Mother Community Council area, Mother, Mountain, Pulmeric and Haysgate, as the route to school is unsafe and hazardous, as evidenced by the double white lines from Park Wall roundabout to High Beach roundabout. There is is no safe crossing point for pupils to cross the main A48. The volume and speed of traffic on the A48 are a risk. There is insufficient width to the footpaths to walk safely from Mothern and Pulmerich to both schools. Expecting children from as young as 4 years old to walk up to 2 miles each way daily to the Dell Primary School, and for children of 11 years old to walk up to 3 miles each way daily to the Chepstow Comprehensive School in all weathers, carrying school equipment and study material, not allowed to wear outer clothing and storing it to dry during the day at school is not safe. It is emotionally stressful, affects their mental and physical health due to the effects of weather, and walking in close proximity to a major traffic route, and is a major concern for the parents of said children to ensure they are safe at all times. Interestingly, just as an added point, if I'm allowed to make it, Chair, is that I was looking at the legislation on this, and it says that sustainable transport does take account of the physical well-being of pupils, and obviously safety is of paramount concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Is there anybody else? Now, we need to discuss as a committee the 4 options that we have. So option 1 is full council for a debate on the matter. All right. The relevant Cabinet member with a request to respond in writing to the Scrutiny Committee and the lead petitioner within 6 weeks. 3 is a relevant working group, committee or joint committee with an appropriate term of reference to address the matter or incorporate the views into their work. And number 4, finally, a relevant senior officer for inclusion in an ongoing piece of work, consultation or project. So can I have some feedback, please? Councillor Howarth?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And following on from last Thursday's meeting, where a motion was submitted by Councillor Lisa Dimmock, the Council agreed to that motion, fully, substantially agreed to it. That motion I will read out. It's very important that we agree to what the Council agreed to, even though the petitions were being presented today anyway, if the motion wouldn't have been there. I feel that Councillor Dimmock's motion, the caveat for it was full Council's agreement to it. So regards that the administration's adoption of statutory distances to qualify for home to school transport will cause financial hardship and logistical difficulties.
Simon, can you speak up a bit? Sorry.
Do I have to kiss this, do I?
No, just...
Oh, right, okay.
Very clear at home.
Very clear at home, see, there you go. So I will be shouting now. You can't hear me, can you? Okay.
Right. Councillor, we've got a broken fan above our heads, so
all right, okay.
Down the front, the fan is
okay.
It's giving us a bit of...
I do apologise.
Just hot it.
As long as I don't have to hog it. Regrets that the administration's adoption of statutory distances to qualify for home to school transport will cause financial hardship and logistical difficulties for many Monmouthshire families. It instructs the Cabinet to ensure that all families who eligibly have changed are directly contacted. That was the important one. Setting out their rights to appeal. Committing to an assessment on whether a safe walking route exists, and expediting all appeals and complaints processes in light of the short notice to many parents ahead of the September school year. Commits to working with schools, parents and community groups to explore safe, affordable transport alternatives for those affected. That's what we agreed as council to the motion. I don't know where we as a committee can go down as reference to diverting from that or deviating from it, reference to that motion under the Constitution.
Councillor Howarth, I'm going to take some other councillors first and then we'll decide the course of action. So can I take Councillor Edwards, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll promise not to kiss the mic like Councillor Howarth. Yes, thank you, Chair. Apologies for not being in the chamber this morning. Can I firstly thank the petitioners for engaging with the council? It's always good to see residents work constructively in this way, especially when they see an injustice has been made by the council's decision making. Now, I know that residents of St Arvan's recently walked from their village all the way to their school in my ward in Chepstow. I only wish that I was in the country at the time, as I would have liked to have joined them to experience it firsthand. But can I seek, like Councillor Howarth, can I seek some clarification from Hazel as Scrutiny Manager? I'm wondering how we go forward with this constructively. As most of us will be aware, the topic of this administration's home to school transport policy was discussed robustly at last Thursday's full council under a motion brought by Councillor Dimmock, as Councillor Howarth has just said. Now, during that meeting, which is quite unusual in itself, we saw the former Cabinet Member for Education show remorse for the current policy. Fortunately, he's part of this committee now, so we may get to hear more from him. He showed remorse for this current policy, which was brought forward when he was in Cabinet. However, existing Cabinet members during that full council, including the new one for education, did not show any remorse and saw the current policy, along with its announced changes, as a necessity. So looking at the report recommendations, which you, Chair, went through about 5 minutes ago, the 4 recommendations, on the one hand, I feel that we know what to expect if the petition is referred to Cabinet by this committee today. On the other hand, I am wondering what the implications will be if these petitions are referred to full council for debate. In other words, what will be the action taken from that debate, considering the motion last week? Is it a vote on the policy after the debate, or is it simply up to the administration to review the points made in the debate and make a decision based on this, perhaps when the policy is reviewed the next time? Also, we have options C and D in the report recommendations, which give the impression of kicking a controversial policy into the long grass, something none of us would want to see happen. So I hope you see my dilemma this morning as to the next steps, and hope that you can clarify the full council option for us, Hazel, and what will happen. Thank you.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. Similarly, I think everybody knows how strongly I spoke against this policy on Thursday. So I really want some clarification on our options today, having debated it already at full council. And option 3 or C is a relevant working group committee or joint committee with an appropriate term of reference. And I just wanted to know what that would look like and who would be on it and what an appropriate term of reference would be. So I'd just like some more information on that, please.
Can I move on to Councillor Strong?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think there are 2 separate issues here. On the one hand, there's the general policy relating to 2 or 3 miles for different levels of schooling. That was passed by the council, is still in force, and was introduced. Well, reference was made by Councillor Edwards to remorse. I think that's misrepresenting what the councillors said in the meeting on Thursday. What they regretted was the necessity for bringing in those policies because of the county's financial position and the difficulty of getting contractors to do the work at reasonable prices. The policy was just falling into line with what most councils in Wales do already. And that really isn't a matter for discussion today. The petitions do not deal with that policy in general. What they deal with is whether the particular routes to school are safe. And when the policy was introduced, it was stated that where there weren't safe routes to school, then free school transport would continue. So what we need to do is to take a forward step which will allow us to continue to look at whether routes to school are safe. I therefore recommend, personally, that number 4 is probably the best one. I gather there is already an officer looking at these things, and that would be the quickest way of taking things forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sort of taking my mind back to when we scrutinised the home to school transport policy back probably 18 months ago, and we were reassured that no child would be forced to walk along an unsafe route. And I can, in my heart of hearts, actually accept that that is, you know, what's happening at the moment. We've had an example from Caldicott on Friday. One of the safe routes that was designated from the top of past the castle to ARW school. The country park was closed on Friday because of the VW Dubs event. So that hasn't been taken into account of closures of the country park, of the times when 18 inches of water on those public paths. I know because, you know, we walk the dog through it, so we know what some of the drawbacks are. So I feel that probably, for me, D would be a sensible option. Possibly asking, can we ask the officer to come back to the committee with some progress? I'm just asking Hazel.
We have the officers here today, so...
Okay, well, we've actually, in front of us, we've got some of the officers involved, so maybe we can ask that question. Penny, do you want to come in first?
Sorry, Chair. Very quickly, I'm just going to say that I support your reasoning for D, relevant senior officer for inclusion in an ongoing piece of work, consultation or project. I just think that...
Penny, can I just interrupt? It's number 4. I said...
Oh, sorry, the 4, yes.
On my papers it says D,
yes, it's
but
on my paper
Hazel
too.
Singh it says number 4. So just to clarify what we're talking about, yeah.
So I agree with number 4, stroke D, because it's on mine, it's D as well. And I just think it would be a faster route. Thank you.
Lovely. So, Penny. Deb, can you, or Matt, can you reply to...
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. So it's probably worth as well just setting out a couple of things for the benefits of those in the chamber today and those watching at home that may not be familiar with the constitution of the council. So just to be clear, as Councillor Howarth outlined earlier, there was what's referred to as a motion received by full council last week that was passed, and that commits council and officers to working on a certain course of action. Part of that, as Councillor Howarth and I think others have outlined, commits the authority to working with schools, parents and community groups to explore safe, affordable alternatives for those affected. My understanding and reading of the 2 petitions here today, as also been outlined by members, is that the primary concern with those is around safety and safe routes to schools. So it doesn't feel that there is a significant inconsistency between what the petitions are looking to achieve and the policy position adopted by council. So again, just to be clear for those at home and members of the public, in agreeing a motion, the council is effectively taking a policy position. It's not changing the home to school transport policy as written. That's got a legal route and has been through an extensive public consultation. But it does commit the authority to undertaking certain work to ensure that there are safe routes to schools. So my sort of view would be that broadly we have petitions and what seems to be, and I can't sort of, you haven't voted or given a definitive view on this yet, the emerging view in this chamber and that of council last week, is that there is a need to look at that piece of work, and that, as others have suggested, the option D or number 4 to sort of include an ongoing piece of work to look at some of these routes to school would be an appropriate way forward. But what I would say, I'm talking there in broadly general terms, and my colleague Deborah Hill-Howells is the Chief Officer with responsibility for these areas, and will be able to add a little more colour to that.
Matt, before Deb speaks, with regard to either D or 4, which is a relevant senior officer for inclusion in an ongoing piece of work, consultation or project, looks at it, but it needs to be timely. Time is ticking away. We've got, we just started the school holidays. We don't want to, as Councillor Howard says, kick it into the long grass. The parents and children need to know that they've got a safe way to get to and from school. So I'll pass it over to Deb.
Thank you. In terms of what we are doing, where we have already received appeals, there are, and I'm looking at this in terms of the petitions we've had today, they're predominantly in the Polmeric and the St Albans area. I understand the Cabinet member has recently walked the St Albans route. I've previously walked the Polmeric route. I have asked my colleagues to expedite all of the appeals that are coming through. I asked the head of service and the team manager following last Thursday's motion, because I contacted Councillor Brown to double check which appeals, because you made a specific point for council to make sure they were expedited. I've also gone back to the officer, who is a qualified officer, to undertake the route safety assessments, to go back and review those assessments that were undertaken in St Albans, specifically around the points for crossing the road, etc. So I am trying to expedite that. I am looking at the assessments that have been undertaken. I will continue to do that, and I will continue to look at the appeals that are coming through to understand whether there is a theme emerging and whether we need to undertake any further work to work with parents, as was agreed at the motion, to come back out, meet with you, to understand what improvements we need to make in those areas and whether the route is still considered to be safe. I've also asked if we can work with schools, with active travel officers, to look at things like walking buses that may alleviate some of the concerns that parents have around the routes being unsafe for young learners. So we are looking at that, as has already been discussed by Matt. We're not looking at changing the policy. We're looking at those specific areas where interventions may be necessary to reassure learners and parents that the routes are available. As has already been articulated, if we do not consider that the route is safe and available, free transport will be provided. And we did look at the carbon emissions when we actually looked as part of the policy changes last year. We did calculate those. We did articulate those at the time. What I would say is where we've been able to reduce transport, that actually offsets the emissions, because we are not having multiple vehicles driving around the county, and we would always ask parents where possible, but we understand individual circumstances vary, to walk or scoot or cycle to work, but that actually plays in absolutely to our active travel. So yes, I'm making a commitment. We will continue to work with those groups, those families, to understand what we can do to reassure you that the route is available, and if that is not the case, we will look to reinstate transport.
Thank you, Deb. I'm going to bring in Councillor Brown, but can I ask if you are very brief? We've got a really full agenda, but if you want to ask a question or get some clarification, I'm really happy for you to do that now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think it's very important to stress that the Measure Traveller Wales legislation indicates that if a route is unsafe, then transport needs to be provided regardless of distance. That's a statutory requirement. I am concerned about the new consultation that ends on the 3rd of September for the Learner Traveller measure for 2005, which will impact 2027 and 2028. I don't believe that it properly emphasises the importance of safety. It talks about public buses, but it doesn't make a difference between primary and secondary children. It says that children can, parents have to take children to the drop-off point, whether it's safe or not. That's contrary to the legislation, which says that the route is assessed from the ordinary residential area. It places an emphasis on Welsh medium transport, but there has been case law on faith transport and provides no emphasis for that, which it should do. So I don't think that the proposed learner traveller measure is fit for purpose, and I don't think it meets the statutory requirements. So I think if you're looking at things further ahead, with regard to a walking bus, I don't think a walking bus would do any good for the residents travelling along the Pulmeric A48. It's dangerous to walk there. It's also, a former county councillor said to me that he thought it was barely safe for motorists to travel along there. The double white lines means that it's a hazardous route, and that's what highways is assessed for motorists. So it is a hazardous route for pedestrians as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Sue Riley to come back in?
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little bit concerned that we're being led down the D or 4 route without any explanation that I asked for about the C or 3. Because how can we vote if we don't know what we're voting for? Also, I'm concerned that one of our speakers, Frederica Madler, made the point that I made on Thursday about the distance, and that seems to have been totally discounted in this discussion this morning. It's a long way, and in my view breaches the Equality Act and does not give the best start in life to children, as is discussed in our later strategic equality plan. Thank you.
Does anybody want to come back on the description of either 3 or C? No.
Chair. May I just ask a quick question, which I feel, as a person who comes from the western side of the county, we're talking about areas within the eastern part of the county here, like Thornwell, Chepstow, St Arvans, all them areas there reference to where we are with the petition and where we were with the motion. Am I correct in saying that at the moment? These decisions being made for the eastern part of the county, yes? Because I've seen no correspondence from the other parts of the counties. It seems to be all from the eastern part, or let's say southern eastern part of the counties. I hear Penny said Raglan there, mentioned Raglan, no, okay. So it's all to do with that areas. I don't know a lot of the areas there. I do know council on Thursday with some actions to what's going to happen in September for them. And I think it's very clear in the motion that we actually need to move quite quickly in trying to address some of these concerns. I think what we will have 6 weeks perhaps tops. I don't think we even have that, to be honest with you, because if things don't materialise, we're going to have to find some contracts for kids to get to school, like if it doesn't work, i.e. if perhaps we have made a mistake that actually that route is not good enough to for children to get to school, we're going to have to find contracts. So we don't have a lot of time. So out of all them 4 options, my personal view is I'd like us to be 120% speedy on how we address this area. And the reason why I say the eastern side or whatever, it may be a massive area. You know, I mean, if you put the map up on the screen there, I don't even know what we're looking at, how many schools and children are involved in all this for this decision. So that's where I am as a Western councillor. I don't know how many children or what schools are even involved in all this. I think I've heard probably four schools and Comp, Chepstow. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Howarth, we're discussing this morning because we've had 3 petitions to this committee, and those 3 petitions are actually from sort of the south of the county. So obviously Councillor Dimmock's motion to council was about Caldecott and ARW situation. So we can only go on what we've got in front of us. But I think we really do need to come to a decision. So the only 4 recommendations that we've got in front of us, and I'll read them out again. We either go to full council for a debate on the matter, the relevant cabinet member with a request. Secondly, the relevant cabinet member with a request to respond in writing to the scrutiny committee and the lead petitioner within 6 weeks. And thirdly, a relevant working group, committee or joint committee with an appropriate term of reference to address the matter or incorporate the views into their work. Or lastly, a relevant senior officer for inclusion in an ongoing piece of work, consultation or project. So we've got 4 options. So can I see some indication of what the committee would propose?
Are you taking the 2 speakers with hands up, Chair?
Okay, Sue, sorry.
Well, I still haven't had an explanation of option 3 or C.
Well, I think we've had one of 4, haven't we? So, Matt, are you able to clarify 3 or C?
Yeah, apologies, Councillor Riley. I think if you look at the outcome of option C, which is a committee, subgroup or working group, and the intended outcome of D, which would be an officer-led similar piece of work, clearly this is up to you as the committee to determine the course of action. One of the things I have heard you talk about, and I think comes through the petitions as well, is the need for urgency and pace on this matter. The one issue I would counsel you on, given where we are at the time of the year, our regular committee meetings will shortly we have very few committee meetings over the month of August. If you are looking at expediency between a committee doing this or delegating that task to an officer to report back as part of the task already set by council, is for you to weigh up which of those options, given where we are in the calendar, would give you the speedier response to enable to input to this piece of work. A personal view is that matter being sat with an officer who is, of course, ultimately responsible to you as elected members of this council would enable you to get a speedier response back on that piece of work. But it's for you to, as a committee, to determine.
Well, could I just add to that then? Sorry, Chair, but a speedy piece of work isn't necessarily an evidence piece of work. So would we get all of the evidence from that consultation or project? Or would we just get an answer?
So if you delegate it down to D, that would be down to myself and my colleagues to actually respond directly to the issues raised in the petition. Because that's what we're looking at here. We're not looking at the wider policy, which I understand, Councillor Riley, you have concerns with. What I will be responding to, and my colleagues will be responding to, are the points raised around those petitions in the Mathen and St Albans area.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Just the 2 brief points. I think our 2 senior officers have answered one of them. Although it would be good to have a rough idea of how long point D would take, whether it's a few weeks, a month, a couple of months. And I suppose in a way, other areas would have to put in their petitions as well for if they feel sort of hard done by in their particular areas in regard to home to school transport. But my other point was the question I had earlier on in that what would a full council debate look like? I'm reading between the lines, as no one's mentioned it, that I imagine it'll be a debate with no meaningful vote that would change anything. So if that's the case, if someone could confirm that, at least we can rule that one out as well.
I think, when is our next full council? Not until September, probably, so we won't get an answer quickly, will we? So I think we really do need to come to a decision, and I'm happy to take the Scrutiny Committee's sort of views on how to proceed.
What happened with point D, though, Chair? Can we have a rough idea of how long would that take? Would it take a couple of weeks, a month? I'm not going to hold you to it, but a rough idea would be good.
As has previously been outlined, parents need to make decisions. They need to understand where they're going to be by September. So I will make a commitment that my colleagues and I will try and work with everybody, subject to holidays and things like that, to try and get this all concluded within the next month at the latest, so that plans can be put in place.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Louise, I think we're going to move on to actually the committee members making a decision. So if you bear with me, we've got a really full agenda this morning. If we don't get through, we're going to be here until I don't know what time. So if you just bear with me. So views on 1, 2, 3 or 4. Can I have an indication of who wants to put it to full council? No one. Number 2, which is the relevant cabinet member with a request to respond in writing to the Scrutiny Committee and the lead petitioner in 6 weeks. Anyone in favour of that? No. 3 is the relevant working group, committee or joint committee with an appropriate term of reference to address the matter or incorporate in their views into this work. I think Sue's in favour of that. Anyone else? And Councillor Howarth. And then the final one, a relevant senior officer for inclusion in an ongoing piece of work, consultational project. And we've had the comments from Deb that she hopes it will be concluded within a month. So can I have a show of hands about 4? Yeah, so I think we're going for number 4. So we'll now move on to the next agenda item. Can I thank the officers and the cabinet member for their patience? And we now move on to the strategic equality plan. Thank you.
Sorry, it's County Sanctuary, isn't it?
No, sorry. No, extra notes, and I've got it wrong, and it's the County of Sanctuary, so apologies. Okay, so I'm going to ask Cabinet Member Angela Sandals to speak to the report, and then we'll have our opportunity to ask questions and have a debate afterwards. Thank you.
Diolch, Chair. The communities of Monmouthshire have a long and proud history of welcoming those fleeing war and persecution. It's part of who we are. Over a century ago, during the First World War, the people of Chepstow opened their arms to Belgian refugees, forced to flee from their homes when their country was invaded. That spirit of compassion and solidarity runs deep in this county. 100 years later, in 2016, Abergavenny became a designated town of sanctuary, part of a UK-wide movement to create places of safety and welcome for people in need. Since then, our county has welcomed families from Syria, from Afghanistan, and more recently from Ukraine. Since 2022 alone, residents across Monmouthshire have opened their homes to over 100 Ukrainian families. This is no small thing. These aren't just statistics or policy lines, they're a reflection of something bigger. They tell us about the kind of place Monmouthshire is and the kind of people we're privileged to serve. People who open their doors, who offer kindness and community in times of crisis. That's why it gave us great pride when Abergavenny Town of Sanctuary was nominated jointly by myself and the leader for the prestigious Nation of Sanctuary Award, hosted by the Wales Refugee Council, and we were absolutely thrilled when they won. The award recognised the outstanding work the group has done since 2016 to support sanctuary seekers and refugees across Wales. The leader and I were there at the celebration to cheer the loudest. I've got the booklet here if anybody would like to read through some of the work that some of these groups are doing. As you'll know, Wales declared itself a nation of sanctuary with a commitment to welcome people through safe and legal routes, to give them a chance to rebuild their lives with dignity. Here in Monmouthshire, we've echoed that commitment. In September 2023, a motion brought by Councillor Peter Strong received cross-party support. That tells us something. It tells us that this isn't a political issue, it's a human one. We're now developing a sanctuary strategy which will form part of the process for becoming an officially accredited Council of Sanctuary. This is a significant step, and we're really keen to involve this Sanctuary Committee in shaping that work before it comes to Cabinet, hopefully in September. To support that, Sharon, who sat alongside me, has prepared a short presentation to explain what that accreditation involves and to help guide your input today. But in closing, I want to say this. Our past reminds us of what's possible when we lead with compassion. Our present calls on us to continue that tradition, and our future, that depends on our choices we make together. This work matters, not just for the individuals it will support, but for the kind of county and council that we want to be. Diolch.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. I'm just going to share my screen, if that's okay. 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 Yeah. Thank you for inviting me today, and thank you for that, Councillor Sandals. Just to is your mic? Yeah. Is my mic? Yeah. Can you hear that? Sorry, is that better? A bit far away. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you for that, for the introduction there to this. Members will have received the report in advance just to explain what we're bringing before you today. It's a bit of a broad overview of our process to achieve that County of Sanctuary status and the work that we will have to entail now in the next few months to get us to that point where we can put that application forward to become the County of Sanctuary, which was passed by full council as the motion, as you mentioned, in 2023. So I've got a few slides here just to take members through, if that's okay. So we're going to briefly just to give you an overview of what a County of Sanctuary is for those who maybe don't have that much detail around it. It is often led by a local authority. Monmouthshire in this case will lead that work to become that welcoming environment for anybody that is seeking sanctuary here. It will mean that we will become part of the broader network under City of Sanctuary. So we've joined that network already, but we will have the accreditation going forward. City of Sanctuary, for those of you who might not be that familiar, is a UK-wide movement which does build on welcoming communities for people who might be seeking sanctuary. It aims to transform schools, councils, universities, neighbourhoods into inclusive spaces of belonging, and it looks and aims to have for counties and the country to become proud spaces that can welcome people who might be escaping violence and persecution. So it does have a support network. Currently it's supporting around 125 groups and local authorities, and it does have various streams of sanctuary. So some of you might be familiar, and as Councillor Sandals has touched on, our very own town of sanctuary, so they've applied through this process and been awarded that status. So we now will also go through that process as well as the local authority for that status to drive this movement across the county more broadly. It It does also then look at and encouraging us to play, as a local authority, a strategic role in promoting integration and that community cohesion agenda. So bringing that awareness into our communities and making them welcome spaces for all. But also that participation, integration, and the structure of how we can do this pragmatically then through our own service delivery to make sure that we welcome any new arrivals who might be coming to Monmouthshire seeking that sanctuary that they desperately need. It does also fit with some of the legal and statutory duties that we have as a local authority. So it does complement things such as the Children's Act that we have, so that's around the unaccompanied asylum seeker children and also vulnerable families that we recognise that we need to help and support through that duty. Social Services and Wellbeing Act, which also touches on our care regardless of immigration status and what we need to provide for people. We have obviously housing and homeless duties, and the fact that we have to think about temporary accommodation and housing advice as part of that to those citizens. Public health measures, then looking at health impact and the preventative measures around healthcare for the population. And then also the Equalities Act, which is around obviously, and you'll hear more about that next after this item, our duty to eliminate discrimination and to advance that equality in the county that we desperately want. There are benefits to us becoming a county of sanctuary, so it does help us to demonstrate our legal compliance in a more proactive way, in a very transparent way through our planning processes and through the strategy that we can develop. It will also help us to look at inclusive service delivery for our communities so that we can think about how this is integrated into what we currently do. And it will also help us to strengthen that partnership working so that we can do this in collaboration with other agencies, and that will include the voluntary sector, but also more importantly, those individuals with that lived experience who are living in our county currently. Did that move on? Yeah. It also then will support us in terms of our own strategic planning. So we can also then look at County of Sanctuary through the lens of our corporate plan, our equality plan, and our other plans that we have on here, such as community cohesion, homeless prevention, and then our safeguarding protocols as well. So there are wider benefits to us becoming that County of Sanctuary. The process itself and the implementation for this is kind of built around three core themes, essentially. So learn, embed, and share. So learn, we want to learn from the lived experience that people have. We want to be able to impart that to staff and to raise awareness and knowledge and skills to work through that lens of that learned experience. We want to be able to embed the principles of this work and to integrate this in our current systems and services, and that collaboration so that we are tackling things such as anti-racism and that that misunderstanding and misinterpretation of asylum seekers and refugees in the county. And then we also want to share and promote the sanctuary work across all of our services, but also to kind of influence some of the policy positions, but also making sure that we have joined up services between us and between the wider community. Some of the operational benefits of this will include early and effective integration support. That hopefully then will prevent some of the long-term costs to us. So if we're planning early and we have these things in train, we can actually be upstream of some of these things. We can have that streamlined working with our partner agencies, the voluntary sector, healthcare providers, so that we know that we're all playing our role effectively in terms of what we're trying to do as part of that County of Sanctuary. We can also then look at reduction, duplication and fragmentation of services, so each of us have a more cohesive approach to how we're working through this lens, but also sharing that the safeguarding procedures, the education access and the inclusion of our strategies when we consider the minority groups that may be coming here for support. But also, importantly for us, it's building the service resilience that we need. So where we have anything such as national scheme placements or sudden dispersal, recent example of that being the Ukraine scheme, that we're actually in a really good position to be working with our partners to drive this work forward. And then also, just to touch on the wider benefits to the process of implementation, is around the strategic benefits of Invest to Save. So it will enable a more proactive and coordinated service delivery. It should reduce reliance on crisis-driven responses because we will have proper mechanisms in place. And hopefully then it will help to improve our outcomes and our resource efficiency through effective and early planning. The key steps that I think will be quite key for members, and we'd really welcome your input into as part of our development of our strategy. These are some of the steps that we have to take as part of the application process. So we have to join the local authority network. We've done that. That's already been completed post full council agreement there, as it says, on 2023. Engage with local sanctuary and refugee supporting organisations locally, which are nationally. We have already started that process as well. And secure formal endorsement from local sanctuary groups who we are working very closely with at the moment for this. We obviously then need to think about raising awareness through community discussions and events. And we need to think about integrating that refugee awareness into the staff training and induction, so thinking about our mechanisms internally and how we can embed this awareness and knowledge across our workforce. There are a few more, I'm afraid, but I will go through those for you. So we do need to try and amplify the voice of the lived experience. So it is around giving those mechanisms to those individuals in our county that can help shape and inform our strategy development. And obviously we want that to inform the production of a 3-year strategy for the county that we will need to undertake, and we are in the process of developing at the moment. Obviously, embedding the culture is going to be important to us, not just in our organisation, but in other organisations that we work with, and then demonstrating our commitment to this and tackling racism through our policy framework, but also through our practice as an organisation as well. And then promoting the work of the sanctuary visibly, so it's out there that organisations, communities, voluntary organisations will actually be able to see what we're doing and how we're doing that. And then obviously thinking then about supporting that inclusive community through different events and the values that we have then through the sanctuary, and how we can take that out into the community and we can actually demonstrate our support for inclusivity in Monmouthshire. And then maintaining the network is also a requirement for us, and the collaboration then with the national policy through consultation and advocacy are also key factors that we will have to have as an ongoing piece of work through our application for County of Sanctuary. So, in summary, your support is absolutely vital as members in helping us to achieve this ambition of becoming a county of sanctuary. And we want to achieve that so that we can work together, that we can build those cohesive communities, and that we can actually embed the values and the principles behind the sanctuary movement in our county. And that will then hopefully provide the support in a more seamless way for our residents, our citizens, and as we say, those people that have chosen Monmouthshire as their place of sanctuary. So thank you very much for your time for listening to that presentation. Happy to take any questions, but I would also like to just draw members back to the recommendations in the report. That's okay.
Okay, I can see Councillor Edwards has got his hand up, so would you like to...
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Sandals, for your introduction, and Sharon for your passionate presentation as well. I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit on this, if you don't mind, so don't take too much offence, but I'm just wondering, how do we stop this, like many other so-called awards, from becoming a gimmick? What tends to happen is that the knowledge and expert-based input tends to be within relevant government departments and local and national charities in relation to the actual assistance they provide to those needing support, whereas other organisations display a logo and look relevant, and we're left wondering what the benefit is and also the true meaning of our role. So if there's no designated staff or budget that can review, promote and examine everything that's being done, how do we assess whether we're doing a good job in the first place? From the presentation, I can't really tell whether the council will have a hands-on or hands-off role. It appears that it may be a sort of advisor type role in the long run, where organisations can come to for general advice in the county. Also, as well, you mentioned some of the groups that you'll be, not by name, but the type of groups that you'll be consulting with and will be inputting into this. But also, will other charities be involved with business groups, schools, sports facilities, sports clubs, etc.? And what will the council's role, going back to what I said about the advisor type role, what will the council's role be once the award is in place? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. They're really good questions. I think for us, for all of you here today, I suppose, it's around how you embed this in your practice, in your policies as an organisation. How do we really truly put this at the heart of Monmouthshire Council? What the workforce is geared up to understand about refugees seeking asylum, but also the training that we're able to embed, that awareness that we're able to raise, but also trying to think about how we can build those cohesive communities with the resources that we have. So we have lots of staff out there in the community. If they're skilled and aware of what we're trying to do when we have people seeking asylum in the county, we really would like to try to look at embedding that in our practice and our culture and our values as an organisation. At this moment in time, we will have to think about how we monitor that performance. I don't think we're there yet, but it's certainly something that I welcome the conversation about and your comments around how we truly measure the impact that we're going to have by achieving this award. And I think in terms of the other agencies involved, there are many strands to the City of Sanctuary programme. So there will be encouragement that our other organisations or voluntary groups in the community could apply for sanctuary status in their own right if they'd like to, similar to the Abergavenny Town of Sanctuary. But also we have started as part of this a piece of work with schools. The schools have an independent, as the sanctuary programme demonstrates, they themselves are able to apply it as schools of sanctuary as well. So we are in train working with some of our schools at the moment with education colleagues to look at how some of our schools can actually apply for that as well, particularly those schools where they have had children in their environment who would benefit from this, I suppose. So I don't know if there's anything else anybody else wants to add, but but there's certainly things that we definitely need to give consideration to. We don't want this to be tokenistic, but we are certainly looking at how we can embed those principles and values in Monmouthshire County Council.
Councillor Riley.
Hi, thanks, Chair, and thank you for but I have historically worked in advocacy for women needing antenatal and postnatal services, and if they haven't achieved the relevant status, they have often been afraid to come forward expecting to be charged for those services. Do we have anybody within the council who is supporting women through that process?
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Riley. That's a really good question. So I think sort of what you're talking about there, in the jargon, it's often referred to as no recourse to public funds, where people, for no fault of their own, end up in a situation where they can't access services. Colleagues around the table, including Penny, who sat to my right, our Equalities and Welsh Language Manager, have been working on developing a NRPF, or no recourse to public funds pathway, to ensure that as a local authority we have a sort of human response to this and no one is disadvantaged or leave to be destitute. But actually our colleagues, be they in social services, our community hubs, know how to deal with those situations when they present to us as a local authority and people in our area are not denied access to basic needs. So it is very much a pertinent issue, one that's on our radar and one that colleagues have actively worked on.
Thank you. Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to pick up on Councillor Edwards' points, because I think he does make fair and important ones, and I have a lot of sympathy with them. I think in many ways, becoming a county of sanctuary doesn't actually involve the county council in doing all that much. Partly because, as has already been explained by Sharon, a lot of it we do already because of the legislation that we have to follow, but also some of the places within the county are already doing these things. We had an excellent presentation, it must be 2 or 3 years ago now, from King Henry School in Abergavenny about the work that they were doing with pupils who'd come to the school from Syria. And that really showed how you create a welcoming a space for people seeking a sanctuary. I think in general, the council's role is much more of a coordination and liaison rather than too much hands-on. Again, a lot of the work already being done by churches and charities and so on. I think just moving on from that, though, it's very important that we understand what county of sanctuary means and what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean in any way changing government migration policy. That's not a devolved matter, and certainly not devolved down to county councils. It doesn't control who does and doesn't come into Monmouthshire. It's purely really about when people are living here who have come into such a sanctuary, we treat them with dignity and respect, and we help them to integrate into their new lives. If you permit me, I'd like to sort of share some of my own personal experiences with that. I worked with a charity down in the south of the county called I Need. Started off as the local Baptist church providing a space where clothing could be collected to be sent out to Syria during the civil war. As we were doing that, we recruited some asylum seekers who we knew who lived in Cardiff, and they would come and help us do that. County Council had a small role in that they had a vacant a warehouse unit in Caldecott that they let us use until it was rented out. Then, of course, we had to move out. Painted the Baptist church and so on. And from that, some practical help. We held lessons in the library where we would sit around with the asylum seekers and read through a book in the collections that the library had of multiple copies, mainly for teenage readers, which was good in learning English language and the way of nuances on in the language, but also the strange ways of the British people that you learn from reading fiction. Other practical help, they had to go to certain places to get isometric testing. When they photographed the eyes and so on, they were given wrong advice of where to go, and so they needed lifts to get there on time. We provided them with accommodation, putting people up when they needed it, and we also, when they got their papers and they were allowed to, we helped them to find work often in sectors where they were desperately needed, like one lad who had lived with us for a while, we found him work in a local care home where he did extremely well. Now, that's what County of Sanctuary is all about. It didn't directly involve the council all that much, but when we needed help from the county, it was there, the warehouse unit, the library, and so on. And the net result of it was largely that those people are doing very well within our county. They're integrating well. They've got good jobs. We recently had one who, one of the ladies who qualified as a nurse, having completed her university degree, and that's the sort of thing County of Sanctuary should be doing. And it's a win-win. It helps the people seeking sanctuary, but it also helps those who are already living here. So just thank you for bearing with me on that.
Thank you, Councillor Strong. Is there anybody else that wants to? Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sharon and Matthew. I want to bring something here which County Councillor Dimmock has actually raised with me. And it alludes to what Councillor Peter Strong was just saying about what County of Sanctuary actually means. I think, unfortunately, at the moment, I don't wish to make this political. This is not a political point that I'm making, but there are bad actors out there who will want to make this political. But the issue that Councillor Dimmock wants to raise relates to some empty rural housing on the edge of Portskewitt. They're Leachpool Holdings properties, apparently, and they're empty at the moment. Until now, they've been used by farm workers and those new farmers wanting to start up and set out on the farming path. There is rumour going around that these are being considered for refugee housing amongst in the community, and that the council are not releasing them for rent or sale. It's right that we want to improve outcomes for refugees and asylum seekers. That's absolutely right. What we must do is promote good relations between groups to ensure that vibrant and cohesive communities exist. Now, I believe that there's a need for some urgent engagement here. The work will need to be done, I think, with Portskirret community to achieve those positive outcomes. We must consider also the pressure on local housing, and I'm not so sure that that, in the Portskirret case, is being considered. But it does impact on, it's right that we're going for this award, but we are on politically very unstable times, and things like this will pop up. And the press will make something of it. So to make you aware, really, of what's going on. Thank you.
I think Matt wants to come back on that.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Thanks very much for the question and input. And yeah, absolutely right. What's been outlined today is the welcome within Monmouthshire communities. We recognise with any housing situation, there are certain properties and areas more suitable for sort of people coming into the county, regardless of background. Issues like rurality, transport, access to services, all of these things need to be considered. But rest assured, any single property which comes forward for nomination by use will be actively looked at and considered in the round of all of those different factors.
John, do you want to come back on that?
Just to thank you for your response there, but we are in very politically volatile times, and it's right that we go for this, but it's we have to engage, and thank you for saying that.
Thank you, Jan. I've got Councillor Penny Jones, and then Councillor Howarth, and then I'll take Councillor Brown afterwards because she's not actually a member of the committee, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. In fact, one of my questions has been answered, but I would just say that I'm grateful for the fact that you've highlighted in your presentations the role that Monmouthshire played having the Ukrainian families here, because I think it's something we should be so proud of as a county, and it certainly made me proud to be part of the county and part of the county council that was involved, so heavily involved. So thank you for that. I just have one nitpicking little gripe. It's partly my background, I think. On page 652, it says, potential for improved outcomes for some groups who have fled persecutions, ... for sexual orientation or religious beliefs. I would like to point out that I think conflict should be in there as well. I think that's very important, especially in these times, with Syria and other Gaza and other places so impacted by war. So please, could we add that to the others? Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Chair. And just quick question to Matt. How many families do we have Ukrainians still in Monmouthshire at the moment?
Bear with me, I have a spreadsheet in front of me.
Look forward to that answer.
So in terms of families living with hosts, it's in the 50s.
Living with hosts, yes.
Of the total number of Ukrainians, and this is information in the public domain, so it's published by the UK government, that have come in under the Homes for Ukraine scheme. It was 350. That's an exact number, not a rounding.
So we have 350 individuals, Ukrainian, who have sought to come to our county, and they may go home, they may want to stay here, whatever. So there's 350 in Monmouthshire at the moment, yeah.
Yes, so and probably just to add a little bit of detail, because Councillor Howarth will be aware of the detail, but not everyone watching at home. When war broke out in Ukraine, the UK government's approach was to ask residents of the UK to open their homes and sponsor families coming in from Ukraine. And we were blessed, I think, with the social capital, the warmth, the friendship offered by residents of Monmouthshire, who opened doors in large numbers. And I think we as a result of that approach from Monmouthshire residents, we had more people arrive here than in any other part of Wales. And large numbers of those families were then able to find work and rent or buy properties locally and have established themselves here. What I would say in terms of the long-term position, visas were initially, I think, for 3 years, with visa extensions being for 18 months. And you can understand the position that if you are sort of President Zelensky and the government of Ukraine looking to the long-term future, they will be hoping for the return of those innovative, creative, passionate members of their community to rebuild and reshape their country when this terrible war does eventually come to an end. But for now, we're absolutely delighted to have those people within Monmouthshire living with local families and contributing. But yes, Councillor Howarth, we probably, relatively speaking, have larger numbers in Monmouthshire for the size of our county than most other parts of Wales.
Okay, thank you for that. And they're all family based. We're not supplying any accommodation or hotels or anything. They're all family based. Yes.
No. Oh, sorry, Chair, through you, of course. But yeah, we're not renting any hotels or accommodation. What we have done, in the same way we would for any family that was locally based or at risk, we helped them out in the early days to identify properties. If people were in a vulnerable position, we might sort of help them out with the bond or references to get them up and running. But everyone that's sort of living independently of a family is renting their own property and has their own tenancy agreement in place. So yeah, we're not providing anything directly.
Right, thank you. Can I just go down then, down the line that I wanted to go down then? As I think it's been quite rightly said as well, we are entering into a period now on where we are with migration, with asylum seekers. You know, we can't hide from that. I've got to say, some of the stuff that gets sent on YouTubes, on Instagrams, on anything nowadays, it's quite vile, some of it. But what we have to be very mindful of is we are a democracy in this country, and we have to listen to people, what they say as well, whether we like it or not. What I'd like to do with what we're doing here with a council or a county of sanctuary is actually probably do a lot more work in going into our communities and explaining and talking to people. I don't think we've done that. If you brought this document to me probably 12 months ago or 18 months ago, I would probably have had a different thought on it or a different direction on it. But I do believe now, I feel what's out there politically, what's out there within our generations of people there, how they see migration and integration. I don't think a lot of people actually understand it, and that's not kind to people. I think we need to communicate and get out there into our communities and explain exactly what we're talking about today, explain what a county of sanctuary is before we even go any further, because I believe if we don't do that, and I'll go back to probably last month, I had some horrible texts and emails reference to the mosque in Abergavenny. The reason why we explored the mosque in Abergavenny with the call-ins, because, and I will still say, I don't think it is the right place. I'll say that forever. I do not think it's the right place to put a mosque. Not that I don't agree. And
Councillor Howarth, you really do need to ask a question on the report rather than stray off.
Yeah, but I assure you, like Councillor Strong, to go into all things. What I'm getting to here is, if we'd have consulted and and gone out in a different way reference to the mosque in Abergavenny. And this is my question. It leads back to exactly where I am, which democratically I'm allowed to say we would have probably had a better outcome, not the vile and horrible things that went out there. And I think before we take this forward, I think we need to get out there, explain, understand, make people understand, because things are changing and it's not for the good as well, let me tell you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I think Councillor Sanders wants to come up. I think if I can just sort of butt in a minute, part of Sharon's presentation did include consultation, and I think, you know, you are correct. We do need to take people with us. It's not got to be top down, it's actually embracing, and actually we only do that if we actually
All due respect,
listen.
Chair, we just took the last document on old school transport. Did we consultation? Did we do things right? No. So come on, let's make this county consult with its communities and its constituents. They're the ratepayers of this county. They keep us alive. We are its representatives, and I'm sure where I come from, we need to talk to people and engage with them and explain to them. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Sanders.
Thanks, Chair. Just briefly to Councillor Howarth's points about engagement. We've recognised that in the past perhaps our engagement hasn't been the best, and we are all working really, really hard as a whole council to improve that. And we've got, you know, lots of ways that we're trying to address this. One thing I would say, that as elected members, we have a huge responsibility. I mean, we've spoken, all of us, about face-to-face engagement. The people that we speak with every day in our communities, while out shopping, walking our dogs, in and out of our hubs and libraries, each of us have an individual responsibility to explain to people. When we get those awful text messages, I've got a 4-page handwritten letter complaining that I can't even reply to because it's anonymous. So somebody's taken the time to write 4 pages of A4 closely typed letter berating me, and I can't even reply. But please, can I implore all of us, when we're out there with our residents, we have a responsibility to put them straight, or, you know, to explain what's happening. You know, the County of Sanctuary is a great accolade. We're working hard to reach it. It was agreed by whole council, and I think it will really improve things for the residents of Monmouthshire. So it was just a personal insight about our personal responsibility. Thanks, Councillor.
I think Sharon wants to come back.
Thank you both. And thank you, Councillor Howarth, for that. I think there is definitely learning we can always take from some of the decisions we make, and I think we can definitely look at, we have a community cohesion teams and officers that work with us around this agenda, and there's certainly more that I think that we can be doing and we will be doing in terms of the accreditation for County of Sanctuary. So thank you for those comments, and I absolutely appreciate that we definitely need to be out there. We want to be talking to the communities, we want to engage with them, and we want to be doing that in partnership with our communities so that we take them on that journey with us. And I know that's difficult, I know it's challenging. There are lots of things that we're going to have to try and overcome in this space, and breaking down that stigma that's attached to people who are seeking sanctuary in our county. I think that's one of the challenges that we will have, but it's certainly something that we will definitely be looking at as part of this approach. So thank you for those comments.
Okay, I'll take Councillor Brown first, then Councillor Graucott. Councillor Jones, did you want to come back? Your hand was up, now it's gone down.
Me?
Yeah.
My hand's still up.
No, it's gone down now. I didn't know whether it was a... Okay, so if I take Councillor Brown and then Councillor Graucott, can I remind people that the time is ticking on, so can you just stick to questions relating to the report, and hopefully they'll be able to get through the full agenda. Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the council has done a lot of work with the Ukrainians and obviously welcomed Ukrainian families. I'd be interested in knowing whether or not the £600 a month or of that nature is still available for hosting families, and, you know, any difficulties in actually paying the full rent, because obviously that there is a payment from central government. I'm not quite sure how long that lasts for. The other question is that the reports say that there are no costs involved. I do believe that there are costs involved, and it was a question that was asked before this motion was passed. I think Councillor Neil asked a question about costs, and he was reassured that the Cabinet member, Angela Sandals, would produce a letter, a response to councillors to say what the cost implications were. And I do believe that Councillor Howarth intervened and said, yes, it should go to all councillors. We never had any correspondence or anything to do with costs. And I do think, before this report proceeds further, we need to know what the cost implications, for example, if council accommodation is being used in a particular way, or, its impact on local services and so forth. I do believe that there was a cost implication, because I do believe that on a financial basis that the evidence showed that the mosque was rented for undervalue, and I do hold to that belief, and there was evidence.
Councillor Brown, can I remind you that we're not actually talking about that decision, we're talking about the County of Sanctuary report?
I appreciate that, but that came up during that meeting. Thank you.
Matt.
Thanks very much, Councillor Brown. To go back to your earlier point, so yes, families who are hosting sort of local families, guests from Ukraine, are still able to get a thank you payment. That comes via us, but is paid directly by the UK government. So there's no direct cost to Monmouthshire County Council budget. In terms of this work overall, the position has sort of changed slightly since the Cabinet paper, where there is no cost over and above teams already in place to implement this work. There is a small fee payable to the City of Sanctuary group as part of the accreditation process, and that's just sort of an administrative fee that covers our membership of the network and enables them to assess our application for this. For the most part, though, this work is funded via community cohesion budgets, which are set up within the authority at the moment, and councillors may be aware that we have a joint arrangements in place with Newport City Council. That's a long-standing arrangement, and we have a joint community cohesion team in place, and they support all of this work in terms of the on-the-ground work with refugees and any asylum seekers that would come into Monmouthshire, and predominantly, Sharon, I think I'm right saying we're in receipt of direct funding from Welsh Government towards those costs.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. So that's determined by Welsh Government. So the partnership as well with Newport City Council is determined by Welsh Government. So those pots of money come in as joint pots that we're able to access then to be able to carry out any of the cohesion work, the resettlement work in those teams that's required and when it's required. So there is dedicated support available, but that funding, as Matt said, does come directly from Welsh Government for this agenda. I'm sorry, just to add to that, Chair, very sorry. There's often on occasions with this agenda as well some direct funding that comes from the Home Office as well. So, but again, that's coordinated through the same structure as the joint Newport and Monmouthshire working for this project.
Thank you. Councillor Groker.
Yeah, could I just say that we don't know a great deal about what this funding is and what the sources are, and I think it's useful if we do know a bit more about the cost implications. And, you know, to say that there's no costs in this, I think there are, because the costs of staff time or whatever. And I think it is being mentioned by Councillor Strong that it's about existing refugees and asylum seekers, and I think that point needs to be underlined and perhaps included within the policy. Thank you.
Matt, did you want to come back on anything?
Thanks very much. Councillor Brown, so we have that information in terms of what's available. Most of it's in the public domain. So I think that's a good question, and more than happy to pull some of that key information together and circle it via email to committee members. What I would stress in terms of this funding, when we undertake work of this nature, UK government and Wales government make funding directly available to local authorities. So it isn't the case that there is no cost to this, but this is not necessarily a matter of local choice. If we didn't do this work or we weren't involved in the work, the funds wouldn't flow into Monmouthshire. So we're not taking any money out of budgets that would otherwise be available for other things. We do the work, we put a grant application into UK or Wales government, and they reimburse the cost to us. So just to offer that sort of reassurance, we're not removing from local services in order to be able to do this, and actually sometimes it benefits us in other ways, because the economies of scale we have sometimes when we then put these arrangements in place benefit other areas of work. So, for example, we've been able to sustain additional support that's then helped sort of with local homelessness work. So we have the same people that may support a refugee if they were struggling to a local family to access that accommodation. So it sort of helped to strengthen our arrangements.
Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Chair. I think that the word sanctuary is a word that has come into common parlance since I joined this county council in 2017. I take pride that every time I walk into this building, I walk under the flag of Ukraine. And I think that's a very powerful statement that this county council has made. And I know that at the start of this debate, there was much talk that when I was first elected, 2017, sanctuary referred more to some of the Arab nations and the Arab Spring, as it was called at that time, and particularly to Syria. And at that time, I was a member of the governing body of King Henry, where a fair number of Syrian youngsters joined the school, and most moved into my ward, and brought a tremendous amount to the life and the community of Lansdowne Ward in Abergavenny. And it is staggering that I spoke to people who more or less had walked from Syria to Abergavenny, had lost a child en route because of the difficulty and the privation of what they were going through. And it makes me very proud to be a resident of Monmouthshire, that we sustain and support people who are going through such terrible elements, trying to lead a decent life. I would like to mention briefly the mosque in Abergavenny, because it has been a
Councillor Goka, I've asked other members not to go down that route.
Okay.
If you've got a question, I'm really sort of looking at the time. If you keep your question to the report, if you've got any suggestions on the process and how the actions required to make the report and the council sanctuary happen, I'm happy to take that. But I'm really mindful, so just a question, come to your point with your question, because I'm really mindful of time, because we've got such a full agenda. So
I'm sorry, Chair. I really just wanted to make the point that Councillor Howarth talked about comments that have been made to him, and to make the comment that in my group of acquaintances in Abergavenny, the vast majority of people have been very, very supportive of the establishment of a mosque. And I suppose a question is almost a rhetorical one to say, should we not allow one of the world's major religions to have a place for their worship in a major community like Monmouthshire? We're asking for one mosque.
Yeah, okay. So I don't think we are going to discuss that this morning. But I'm moving on to the last question before we break for a comfort break is from Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very quick. It's just really for those who seem to have misgivings about, in their words, taking this forward, and just asking that they look carefully at the recommendations. I'm sorry if I'm doing your job here, Chair, but recommendation 2.1 really is just about reviewing the process and so on. So it's not actually about adopting council sanctuary accreditation at this stage. So I would ask, Chair, that you emphasise that, please, when we move to make a decision. Thank you.
Okay, I was coming to that. So thank you, Councillor Strong, for your feedback. So we need to, I think I've heard that members have concerns about whether there is any financial implications for us adopting this course of action, and actually to also ensure that we do consult with our residents and make sure that voices are heard across the county. It might be that the north of the county is probably multicultural than the south, but that nonetheless we need to make sure that all our residents are aware of the direction of travel and how we move forward with this. So has anybody else? Oh, Councillor Howarth.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to elaborate a little bit more on that one, because when the slides were put up on the screen, I did see there was engagement there. But what I would like is probably an engagement window, so that our teams can go into communities, and I'm not saying every community, but hold events. So if you take, for instance, into Chepstow or into Caldicot and hold events there, so people can come and ask questions, because the feeling is a lot of people don't understand. And I think a lot of people will want to ask questions and get an understanding of what a county sanctuary means. And I don't understand it fully, because there's probably questions today I've had a relay back, and probably you don't know, Home Office, and whether boat people, 500 will land in Monmouthshire tomorrow and we've got to accommodate them, and all them kinds of things people will want to ask. Because from 12 months ago, I've said it, 18 months ago, things have changed. And I think it's important we do that. And I would not support anything unless we do that. Engagement. We have events, engage, get out there. And I think that's the most, I would prefer that the next step, is get out there and sell ourselves of what we aim to do with being a county sanctuary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Howarth, and I think we've had that commitment from Sharon that there will be sort of not roadshows, but there will be opportunities for our residents to fully engage with what it means, and how we can take this forward. But also, there's a commitment on ourselves as elected bodies, elected members, to actually also inform ourselves of what it is and what it isn't. And I'm hoping that, maybe there's opportunity for a member seminar or something like that to allow us to fully debate what it is and what it isn't. So thank you. Are the members happy that with those provisos that we end the discussion on the County of Sanctuary? Okay, well, I'm going to suggest that we have a very, very quick comfort break for 10 minutes, and we come back here at 12:05, and then we'll be talking about the equality strategy. Thank you very much. I think we're just having the live stream put back on. So can we go back to the agenda? And we're now on item 6, which is the Strategic Equality Plan 24-25. And can I ask, is it Angela or Penny? Councillor Sandals will be speaking to the report. Thank you.
Diolch, Chair. I'll just give a brief introduction before handing over to our Equalities Officer, Penny. As you'll all be aware, the Equality Act 2010 requires us to comply with general and specific duties under the Act. One of the responsibilities placed on us is to produce a strategic equality plan. The current strategic equality plan was approved by Council on the 20th of February 2024, and it covers the period 2024 to 2028. It is a requirement that we produce an annual report outlining the progress. This is the first annual monitoring report relating to the current plan. It covers the progress during the year ending March 2025. The Equality and Welsh Language Manager, Penny, who sat next to me, leads on structures and processes that will enable service delivery teams to deliver the vision for the county, articulated in the Strategic Equality Plan and the Council's goals in the Corporate and Community Plan. The objectives agreed in the Strategic Equality Plan were: Objective 1, give every child the best start in life. Objective 2, support the creation of fair employment and good work for everyone. Objective 3, work with partners and residents to build inclusive and cohesive communities. Objective 4, expand our provision of community-based services that extend people's healthy life expectancy. 5, ensure our services are accessible to the public. 6, ensure we have a diverse workforce and a fully inclusive workplace. And finally, Objective 7, to reduce the gender pay gap. This report provides an update on the progress against these objectives. I'm going to hand over to Penny now, who's going to take us through some of the highlights. Thank you, Chair.
Before you hand over to Penny, can I just point out on key issues, given that 50% of our population are probably female, that when you talk about the Equality Act, you've got, irrespective of age, gender, race, sexual orientation, or any of the other characteristics, we need to actually change that to sex, as in the Supreme Court judgment, which means biological sex, please. I'll allow Penny now to speak to the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Sandals. Just wanted to show some highlights from the report to share with you. So some of the actions include increasing the take-up of free school meals to 75%, schools drafting anti-poverty strategies, support for vulnerable groups, developing a new ALN policy, improving school data on respect, rights and equality issues, including bullying, and delivering RRE training. In May 2024, the Council became a Disability Confident Employer Level 2, accompanied by a 3-year action plan. It is committed to encourage local firms to be accredited too. It has assisted 89 pre-start and existing businesses with advice and support, and supported 49 start-up businesses, exceeding the target of 30. We've held 12 events throughout the year to celebrate diversity, including Windrush Day and an Iftari event. It has supported community groups to ensure their voices are heard in shaping the future of the county, and are continuing to develop a plan that will support an application for Monmouthshire to become a county of sanctuary. It has reviewed and updated the integrated impact assessment guidance and templates, continue to ensure our public buildings are accessible, made improvements to the accessibility of the Council's website, and ensured equality training is available for all staff. I welcome your scrutiny of the SEP Annual Report 24 to 25. Thank you, Chair.
Can I ask members if anybody wishes to speak to the report? Councillor Howarth and Councillor Riley. Councillor Howarth first.
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Can I go to page 25? I've got page 25 on my pack here, but I'm not too sure. It's all to do with the tender documentation. I think it's the business side of it. We are using tendering to promote diversity in supply chain. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that? This is our tender process, but we use a tender process as well with Cardiff. Are we encouraging Cardiff also to make sure that the other tender processes promoting diversity also? Because I mean they may not be encouraging the process within the next scale up. I think we when we tender in this authority, we go to a certain level. The next level, then it gets past the consortium in Cardiff. Can we make sure that actually they're well aware of carrying out their obligations with that tender process, please?
It comes through our procurement team, and so we will obviously work with Ardell in Cardiff. This information is from Ardell themselves. This is what they do in their procurement. This is what they put into their contracts. So the information has come directly from our work with Cardiff and them themselves.
All right. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry if I repeat myself, but this document states that it's not a standalone policy. And we heard last week that free school meal children are the least likely to have the best school attendance. So by adding an additional barrier to school attendance with the home to school transport policy, how are we giving every child the best start in life?
That is for the I think Deborah Hill-Howes is heading up on the home to school transport strategy. I understand that they are looking at reviewing those that are having issues with that.
Sorry to interrupt, but not this particular issue about the barriers to education and the distance travelled.
I would have to look into that and get the information for you from the relevant officer on that.
Can I just add, Councillor Riley, weren't we told that they were going to particularly look at children who were on free school meals and see how it was impacting on them? So I think there is particular scrutiny being added there.
But if we're asking how it impacts on them, we'll have to wait for it to have that impact, won't we?
Point taken, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you both Penny and Angela for bringing this to us. On part one, where we're giving children the best start in life, I have a concern that's been brought to me concerning breakfast clubs at the new King Henry School. Now we charge £2 for breakfast per day. This is disadvantaging those most in need of. Sorry, I'll start again. Can't read my own writing. Sorry. It's disadvantaging those most in need parents just above that free school meal eligibility line. The head has described to me that this group has been the most in need of social intervention and support, and yet they're not able to come in for breakfast because their parents simply can't afford it. And I understand there's in Key Stage 2, I believe, there are 11 pupils who fit this criteria, that they really want to be in school, but parents can't afford it. And I know that funding for the last term has come from the King Henry Fund to actually allow those children to have breakfasts and be cared for. What will happen in September, another matter. So I'm really concerned about that. How can we further include these young people who are just above the free school meal eligibility How can we include them and not leave them out?
Councillor Butler, can I suggest that the committee writes to Will McLean to answer that, rather than, because Penny is the diversity and engagement manager, rather than quite specific detail. It's obviously really important for those children that aren't being able to have a breakfast because they can't afford it, but we need to actually sort of direct that to the person that can actually answer that question. Is that okay?
That's fine by me. It's obviously not just the pupils of King Henry School.
No,
it's elsewhere.
it's everywhere. Yeah, thank you. Did you have another question?
I do actually. Sorry about this. I know it's quite a long meeting. I wonder how, this is section 3 now about partnerships, working with partners. I don't know whether you're actually aware that, or whether any liaison has been done with the WI in Gwent, who have got a Not In My Name campaign going on at the moment, and are campaigning for no more violence against women and girls, which is a national, regional and local policy. Whether we are actually liaising, I'd like to know whether that is happening. In section 4, it's great that we've got some lovely drop curbs in Penplenny, but around the county we don't have drop curbs at bus stops, and I wonder whether a review of drop curbs at bus stops throughout the county might take place. Active travel actually begins when you step out of your front door, and our uneven and potholed pavements, or footways as we call them, do have to be crossed. So there are some issues around there. I wonder what we can do about those. And finally, digital literacy. It's great we are have training going on at hubs, but what about the secondary settlements and the wider community? How can we reach those people where there are still digital literacy needs? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. To start off with the first comment regarding the Valder SV, Sharon does a lot of work with the Gwent-wide Valder SV. We're very much a part of that, and I know that we actively engage and work very strongly on that side of things. The drop curbs at bus stops, uneven surfaces, I can go back to highways and speak to them if what their plans are on that. I'm quite happy to do that and get back to you. Obviously, I do a lot of work with disabled groups as well, so it's quite a big thing. And again, the digital training, I can speak to employment and skills team and see whether they're thinking of rolling something out that people can do in the more rural areas. I've got a feeling that they do a fair amount, not just in our hubs, but in community centres and stuff. So there may be stuff that's already going on, but I can certainly find out for you.
Thank you very much for that. I look forward to that.
Lovely. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Sandals, for the introduction, and for Penny for your for presenting the report this morning. I just wanted to make a few points and observations, really. I'm happy for my colleagues to scrutinise the Council's progress with this plan, and wanted to use my allotted time to provide some feedback following a meeting with a resident of mine. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today, but as I promised, I wish to share the following feedback. It's just a few points, that's all. Firstly, in the report, the protected characteristics under the Equality Act are listed incorrectly. Now, I appreciate that because the report is a period that's already finished. They should read age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion or belief, sex and sexual orientation. Now, given that the plan is looking to address, mitigate and positively address identified issues in Monmouthshire that have an adverse impact upon people or groups of people with protected characteristics, it's essential that we know who these groups are going forward for the next report. But I'm sure you've already taken that into account anyway for next time. The Council references the Welsh Government's LGBT LGBTQ+ action plan as a relevant strategy. Now, since the Supreme Court judgment for Women Scotland Limited, the appellant versus the Scottish minister's respondent, this plan is now very clearly pushing positions that are not in keeping with the law. I think a member of the public touched on this earlier on in the public forum. In particular, its statement that trans women are women, trans men are men, and non-binary identities are valid. In all respects relating to the Equality Act, trans people retain their birth sex for equality purposes, and non-binary identities are not legally recognised. Going forward, please can we ensure that all policies feeding into our strategic equality plan are compliant with the law? And like I said, I'm sure you've taken that into account already for the next report. In relation to objective 1, give every child the best start in life, doesn't list sex as a relevant characteristic. Why is that? You note the outcome: children, young people and families are supported to improve their health and well-being. Sex is a relevant factor in inclusion needs for physical exercise, the impact of menstruation on participation in education and exercise, and when addressing possible eating disorders affecting health. Another action for Objective 1 states, provide an LGBTQ+ inclusive education through the relationships and sexuality education section of the curriculum for Wales. What is a plus child, and why is that appropriate to teach children? What steps are you taking to ensure children are not being taught that if they don't fit gender stereotypes for their sex and that they need to change their body to fit in? In Objective 3, working with partners and residents to build inclusive and cohesive communities, you talk about the need to address period poverty, which is commendable. The legally correct term for the demographic affected, remembering everyone keeps their birth sex as legal sex for equality purposes following the Supreme Court judgment, is young women and girls. Menstruation solely affects females, and it isn't helpful to de-sex these issues. I've nearly finished. A couple more points. In Objective 5, ensure our services are accessible to the public. You've not listed sex as a relevant characteristic. Why is this? Sex is highly relevant to making spaces accessible. In particular, women are safer in single-sex changing rooms and toilet facilities, and many will self-exclude if these are not provided. Not recognising sex as a relevant factor here, as well as potentially discriminating against women, also seems incompatible with your aim to be a county of sanctuary. Minority faith women often have stricter rules around what is permissible around members of the opposite sex, and failing to accommodate that could mean any minority faith woman that settles here could find herself unable to use public services at all. Therefore, in able to meet your outcomes, buildings are fully accessible to all people, and town centre toilets are accessible to all people, you will need to ensure that there are sex-segregated spaces with unisex facilities alongside and not in place of single-sex spaces to meet the needs of those who are uncomfortable using a space on the basis of sex. And my final point, after a discussion with a resident, also in Objective 5, you mention the need for inclusive language in training materials. Inclusive language often erases women from the issues that affect them by using gender-neutral terms for things that only affect women. This impacts the ability of women with learning disabilities and where English is a second language from understanding when services are for them, and affects health outcomes. For example, nearly half of women do not know what a cervix is, and so screening for anybody with a cervix has a lower take-up. So following the Supreme Court judgment, all people retain their birth sex for equality purposes, and you will need to reflect this in your equality training with any accommodations for transgender people to run alongside, rather than instead of those needed on the basis of sex. So just to conclude, I appreciate that the Strategic Equality Plan covers the period 2024 to 2028 and was consulted on at the time and then approved at full council. However, a lot has happened between then and now. My resident has provided good arguments on the urgent need for this plan to be updated in line with the Supreme Court judgment, as the Equality Commission has been doing, and as the Welsh Government needs to do, which they have been prompted to do, to be fair, for over 3 months now. And I know that my colleague, Councillor Brown, has also been a champion for changes that need to be made in this plan. So perhaps it's time for the plan to be reconsulted upon before being presented to Council again. In addition to the points raised, do we have timings of when such a review might take place in the near future? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards, and you've made some really salient points. And I would also like to add...
Chair,
Hello?
I have, sorry I'm interrupting you, but I have 2 questions on very similar theme. I just wonder if you want to come to me.
Okay, I'll come to you before I ask for Penny and Angela. But I also wanted to say that actually nothing's changed. The Equality Act 2010, nothing has changed. It's just that it was misinterpreted by public bodies. So I'll pass on now to Councillor Strong. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just to back up that point, if you go into our Thinky training, and I appreciate members of the public don't have access to this, but it's a training tool that we use. I think you'll see that is fully compliant with the 2010 Act as interpreted by the Supreme Court. So Thinky got it right from the very beginning and didn't need any clarification. I will mention specifically inclusive language there, and I share Councillor Edwards' points about inclusive language, but the Thinky training points out that what that means in this context is avoiding gendered language when it's inappropriate in the first place. So, for example, I just refer to you as chair, not as chairman or chairwoman. Yep, and that's common practice in the council, and that happens elsewhere in life now. We refer to police officers rather than policemen, policewomen, and so on. I think that is the appropriate way to avoid gendered language, but I certainly take on board and agree with Councillor Edwards' comments on that. Picking up also on his point in objective 1, where you missed sex off of the giving people a great start in life. You could add to that bizarrely, although you didn't tick the sex box, you ticked gender reassignment. Now, while children can be gender questioning, gender reassignment is not open to children. It's a very specific legal process which is only open to adults. And indeed, most children who are gender questioning do not go into that rather drastic stage of things. So I would like to ask if the ticks in the boxes there. So we put in sex and we take out gender reassignment. Also relevant to what Councillor Edwards has said is on the LGBTQ plus education. In mainstream classes, schools often rely on resources from external providers for LGBTQ plus education, and indeed for relationship and sexuality education in general. I'd like to ask what steps are being made to ensure that these resources are safe and lawful. For example, there was recent controversy when it was revealed that at least one school, I think perhaps several, in Bridgend were using resources which included advice on safe choking or safe strangulation as a sexual activity. Well, I think that's entirely unacceptable and not safe. Equally, how are we monitoring that they reflect the law? There have been several references to the Supreme Court judgment today, and we need to ensure that we're online with that. As I say, our Thinky training is good on that, but we're also apparently providing equalities training to leaders and managers how are we monitoring that? Because it does seem that, for example, the misuse of the word gender when you mean sex is becoming endemic at the moment, right to the point where a senior member of this council on International Women's Day of all times made a reference to the Gender Discrimination Act of 1975. I don't know if she couldn't bring herself to say Sex Discrimination Act like some stereotypical Victorian maiden aunt or who couldn't even use the word. But we do need to address these points about the safety and lawfulness of our equalities education. Thank you. I would like to come back with a third question later on if I can.
Penny, would you like to come back on those?
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards and Councillor Strong. There was a lot in that. I will try my best to answer those questions. In terms of Objective 1, not including sex, I think you're quite right. That is an oversight, and I'm more than happy to tick that box for the next report. And also looking at it, I think religion or belief is also should also be ticked as well, because it does cover, that is inclusive as well. So more than happy to make those changes. In terms of the LGBTQ plus teaching, I would have to get back to you on that and speak to the head of inclusion exactly who is giving the teachings. I know it's in line with the curriculum education section of the curriculum for Wales, as it says in the report, but I don't know more than that really, other than what's in the report. So I'd have to get back to you with what that involves. What else was there? Again, the Objective 3 with the poverty, period poverty, again, more than happy to change the wording of that. So it's more based around sex. I'll look at that before we publish it to check that I've got that right. In terms of the Supreme Court ruling, we are waiting for EHRC guidance. They did a consultation which ended on the 30th of June, and like all councils, we are waiting for their guidance in terms of the code of practice to come out, at which point we will review our policies and review the strategic equality plan to bring in line. Was there anything else?
Are you happy with that, Councillor Edwards and Councillor Strong?
Can I come back? Yeah, I'm not sure why we need to wait for guidance. So the law is absolutely clear on this, and it has been since 2010. As I say, I think he had no doubts about that whatsoever. So are you taking out the gender reassignment tick from the Objective 1 box?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Right, I'd like to come back with a question on a different issue when I can, please.
Councillor Edwards, are you happy? Yeah.
I think I'm in complete agreement with what Councillor Strong said then. Also, are we waiting on anything for Welsh Government to do before we change our plans, or is it a case of legal guidance rather than Welsh Government guidance?
We're waiting on the legal guidance from the EHRC. In terms of Welsh government, we will need to wait what they do in terms of the action plans and how it affects those, because obviously we're sort of in the middle of it all, and we've got guidance from Welsh Government and different guidance from the Supreme Court ruling, so we're waiting to see what the EHRC, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Brown, would you like to come in now?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I certainly agree with the comments put forward by Councillor Edwards and Councillor Strong. I do believe that this was consulted on last year, and obviously it covers 24 to 28, but because of the Supreme Court judgment, it is, in a sense, it does need updating. And with regard to give every child the best start in life, I do think that, sex ought to be included, particularly in relation to this LGBTQ plus area of education, because the Equality Act is about sex and gender reassignment, and it's not about this gender ideology whereby there's a continuum between male and female. And particularly in view of the Baroness Casey reports on the fact of, puberty blockers and the harm it can do to children. So I don't think we should be waiting for the Welsh Government to do anything about it, or HRC. We should be trying to amend this ourselves so that we're compliant with the law. Also, in terms of give every child the best start in life, I think religion or belief. And in terms of inclusion, I would like to see comments in relation to Christianity, because there is law to say that there should be collective worship every day in schools of a broadly Christian nature, and we don't seem to be enforcing that particular law either. And I'd like to see schools do a lot more of that. But I think on all of these issues, one of the things I think that has confused people is the language that we use. And in relation to the code of conduct, I actually asked for it to be, for councillors, changed to gender reassignment and sex, rather than have this thing of gender. And I think when we talk about gender pay gap, we should talk about sex pay gap, because that's what we're actually really talking about. And I think that, going through this, it does have a lot of implications for lots of things, particularly in relation to toilets and changing rooms and so forth. So it impacts our leisure centres, our schools and so forth. And Councillor Grocott will remember when I was asking questions to Council to ensure that there were single-sex toilets in the new Abergavenny school. So I think these things are important, and I think it is important to cover all of the characteristics, and also not to have such a simplistic plan that doesn't recognise that on occasions there are conflicts between the different protected characteristics. For example, there doesn't seem to be anything mentioned about marriage or so forth, but I mean that is one of the protected characteristics, or stable relationships and in relationship and sex education. So I do think these issues need to be addressed, and they are particularly important for children, because I think from a safeguarding point of view, we can't really be waiting for this other guidance to come out when it can affect the future of our children who I think organisations, for example, like Sex Matters and LGB Alliance are very much against this idea of that you need to change your body if you have an attraction to the same sex, because they don't believe that that's the case, and sex does matter. And what's happened is that women's spaces haven't been properly protected, and they need to be, and we need to ensure that we cover all of these issues, but I think language, I mean, is one of the key issues. I did actually, when the consultation was out, I think Matt Gatehouse dealt with this plan, I did put in a consultation response mentioning that we should use the term sex rather than gender, so that there isn't any confusion. But obviously there are still references in this plan to diversity, gender and sexuality, and it's actually it's actually sex and gender reassignment. In fact, I think some case law said that gender reassignment, binary came under gender reassignment, not under sex. So I think it is important that we get the terms correct, and I'd like to know if you are going to update this plan a bit earlier than you planned, because I think it's important for our children to have a correct education in the fact that a woman is a biological woman and a man is a biological man. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Penny, Angela, would you like to come back on that?
I think it's really important to remember, firstly, that this report refers to March 24 to March 25 before the Supreme Court ruling. So it is reporting on that year before we had the Supreme Court ruling. I should imagine the next report will very much reflect the Supreme Court ruling and what the EHRC guidance gives us. And we will, as I say, review all our policies and everything then. In terms of the sex and gender words, language, I absolutely take on board what you say, and we'll review this document to make sure we've got the language right, and also review our the strategic equality plan to make sure the language is right. I would just say that was obviously done before I started in my role, so I will check to make sure the language is right in terms of sex and gender. Yeah, obviously taking on board all you say about schools. I can only look into our head of inclusion for schools, and you know, ask them the questions of what you're saying, and get back to you on that. But I think it's really important to remember that this report is for things that happened before the Supreme Court ruling.
Thank you, Penny. Can I can see that Councillor Strong's got his hand up, but can I just ask two quick questions? One of the, on page 21, it's improved access to and use of data gathered by schools concerning bullying, harassment, discrimination, and provide support. Do we collect information based on sex? So do we know peer-on-peer assaults? Do we know whether it's girls in relation to assaults on boys or the other way around? I've seen some reports where it just talks about pupils, and actually that doesn't give a really clear indication of the societal context of you know, violence against women and girls. So I'd like to ask that. But on a more positive note, and I guess in your next report you'll make reference to the fact that Monmouthshire County Council's now become an age-friendly employer, and we're looking for age-friendly status in the forthcoming weeks as well. So I'd like to ask, what have we done to encourage our workforce to stay in work longer? I mean, the pension age is going up and up and up. What reasonable adjustments are we giving our staff that want to be included in the workforce for as long as they can? So if you want to answer that, and then I'll go on to Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the anti-bullying and the RRE work in schools, I can find out what data they are collecting, whether they are collecting the sex of the students involved, and I can get back to you on that. In terms of becoming an age-friendly employer, yeah, that's happened, and I can get back to you. I can speak to the head of HR about what we are doing to encourage people. But I think having a meeting with her recently, we are supporting people. We have people working with us who are 77 and have no thought of leaving. They enjoy it so much. So we're quite happy with that, and we will support people to stay as long as they want to.
Thank you, Penny. That's quite encouraging to hear. Although, a long and happy retirement is also a good thing too. So can I, the last question as I see it on the screen is Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Chair. Two quick ones, if I may. First of all, objective 1, there's a reference to free school meals and the well-known point that the take-up seems to be lower in the poorer communities than in the more wealthy ones. I'm just seeking reassurance that more work will be done on that and there will be report backs to whatever relevant body. I don't want to overcrowd scrutiny, but it might be through council seminars or whatever, because it's a really challenging issue that we need to get sorted. And the second one was, again, in Objective 5, making our services accessible. It mentions a toilet strategy, but unless I've missed it, there's no reference to changing spaces or only changing places, where severely disabled people can get changed and so on. As I understand it, it's already been agreed within various bodies of the council that it's an MCC ambition or part of our vision to have at least one changing space in every town. So I'd like some reference to that in the report, and for that to be fully taken on board by all council officers and councillors when relevant issues come up. For example, if we're looking at disposing of a building, is there a community group who would work with us in using that building, but also turning part of that building into a changing space? I know there's possibilities of that in a building in Caldicott that are being explored. So can we flag that up, please, and make sure that there's a consciousness of the need to do that, so that we don't lose the opportunities that might arise? Thank you.
Penny, did you want to come back on any of that?
Thank you, Councillor Strong. The free school meals take-up, I know, is big on our agenda. We are aiming to have 100%, so I'm sure that the schools are working on that, the CYP Directorate. If you want more specific information, I can go back to them and ask for it, but I know that that's our goal, is to be 100%. In terms of the changing spaces, I'm happy to add that to the report. I can speak to the officer responsible and check where that is on their agenda. But I'm happy to have that in with toilets. I think again, it's maybe just we say toilets, we mean those spaces as well.
Councillor Strong, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I don't really need more statistics because we know of the issue on free school meals, but just report back from time to time to show what progress we're making. Thank you.
Can I just come back on the changing places, changing space? They're actually equipped for people that use wheelchairs and hoists, so it's not just about accessible toilets, actually making sure that people have got the right equipment and the right space within that. And I know when we were looking at various buildings in Abergavenny, that was one of the issues that was going to come up. So yeah, so I can see Sue Riley has put her hand up, so
thank you, Chair. It's in relation to that, really, and I know that this is a cross-service issue, really, but we're talking a lot about changing spaces and adults needing these facilities. But what I'm really interested in is what we do for toileting of young disabled children, because there is very little in the way of service for toileting for young disabled children. There is the attitude of, and I know that really comes within the health service, but there is very much an attitude of, well, they can wear nappies when they're older, and there is very little recognition of the lack of dignity within that. So if we are to be giving every child the best start in life, we really need to do much more on toileting from a very young age of children who are disabled. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we've had a really good discussion on the report, and hopefully you'll have a few things, Penny, to go away and think about and reflect on. And can I thank the councillors that have contributed this morning? It's been a really useful discussion. I don't think we've actually aired our views on either the Equality Act or the Supreme Court judgment within scrutiny before. So can I thank people present for the manner that they've asked the questions, the discussion, and thank Angela and Penny, and then we'll move on to item 7 on our agenda, which is the Adult Services Inspection Report. So thanks both, and thank you for your time. Okay, we're just going to have a couple of minutes where we round up the officers to come before us. So should we say 5 minutes? But we'll be back here at 1 o'clock. That's 8 minutes. Oh, I can see Jane now. Okay, let's get back here at 1 o'clock then. Okay, thank you. Okay, everyone, are we all here? I think Martin's gone off to make a quick call, but okay. So it's been a really long agenda today, so thank you for your patience and bearing with us. We now move on to the Adult Services Inspection Report, and Jenny Jenkins is going to give a very sort of brief overview. Ian, do you want to introduce it, or should we move over to Jenny? Jenny, if you would do your presentation, that'd be really useful.
Thank you. Afternoon, everybody. And I will keep it brief because I know you've had a lot of information already provided. You've had the 2022 inspection, the 2025, a covering report and some slides. So you've had a lot of information already. But just in order to introduce the subject in preparation for any questions, just to reiterate that this item is related to the Adult Services Inspection undertaken in April of this year. The report and the documentation identify the focus, the methodology and the outcome of what was essentially an improvement check to follow up on a previous inspection that took place in July of 2022. So on that basis, as it was a follow-up, it looked at exactly the same areas which broadly sit under the headings of people, prevention, well-being and partnership. And in 2022, there were 23 areas of improvement identified. And in 2025, 20 out of those 23 areas were identified as improved. The 3 areas that were identified as not improved were already areas that we knew needed more work and that we are now actively developing. And those areas are primarily around the assessment and the requirement to incorporate risk management and contingency planning in a way that is stronger and more evidenced. And then in relation to carers' assessments, how they are provided and the need to evidence co-production within the assessment documentation. So in response to those particular issues, we are planning some specific quality assurance training and support in terms of resource and training tools in order to improve the quality of our assessments. And we're also actively reviewing the approach around how we assess and identify the needs for carers. So that work has already started. So just to summarise, really, we were really pleased that the inspection team acknowledged that our service transformation plans represented a positive direction and work that is already in progress within adult services, and that is the development of a specialist information advice and assistance service to be placed at the front door of all of our locality offices, the development and expansion of our reablement service, and our domiciliary care commissioning strategy, which will support additional service capacity and quality across the county. So the inspectors also noted the expansion of our assistive technology offer as a positive and were complimentary about the expansion of the offer of micro-carers for residents in Monmouthshire. Safeguarding was described as effective with strong performance, and generally our integrated structures were recognised as a strength that supports positive practice. Communication with staff was also highlighted, and there were a couple of other areas as well that were identified as being really strong in terms of supporting good practice in Monmouthshire about advocacy and around how we present our assessments in terms of providing biographies of those individuals. So we were really pleased with the report. There's a lot of work that the service area has to do to support an inspection. The inspectors are only in for 3 days, but we only have a few weeks' notice to get everything ready. We provide a lot of information beforehand, all of our strategic plans, all of our communications, care and support plans, which are tracked by the inspectors. You know, we have to arrange all of the meetings as well, because the inspectors want to speak to staff and to people receiving services. They want to speak to our partners. So there's a lot of work to do. So we were really pleased that this is a positive outcome, and also reassurance that our service plans are supported as forward-thinking and aligned with positive practice. That said, we continue to focus on improvements and continue to engage with CIW as part of our regular schedule of meetings. I think that concludes in terms of providing an overview of the original inspection, the follow-up and the outcome, and of what we have planned to take things forward. So that's all from me.
Ian or Jane, do you want to add anything to that? So, councillors, can I have hands up who wants to ask any questions? Councillor Jones.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the report on the inspection. You know, we must remember, we must get out of it the positives that Monmouthshire is a good place to work, and that comes through. So that's from a workforce point of view, and that everyone is trying hard. And perhaps uppermost, it's the fact that we have a lack of staffing, difficulty in retaining staff, and a lack of resources behind most of the improvements that are warranted. But I have one question. It's on page 6, well, I have a few, but page 69, and it's 1.7 or 79, the other number, 1.7, and it says statutory reviews are not undertaken in a timely manner. Local authorities are missing opportunities to ascertain whether people have met their outcomes and continue to need support. And I just wondered, is this down to shortage of staff, that you're unable to do this on time, or other reasons? Thank you.
Jane, would you like to?
Do you want me to answer that, Jane?
I'm happy if you want to come in, Jenny, that's fine.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think that it is about volume of work that impacts on the ability of us to conduct reviews, and we do prioritise reviews in accordance with, you know, what comes to us, what is presented. A lot of stuff comes to us back through our front door where people's needs have changed. So I think there's a couple of things around reviews. One is that I don't think we're recording our reviews appropriately, so we're doing some work with staff around recording when a review has been completed. So I think we're selling ourselves a little short on that. But also, we have really improved our performance around reviews because we have focused some additional resource on completing those reviews in a more timely manner. And now our performance is above average. I'm pleased to say that our review performance has increased substantially because of the additional focus that we've placed on conducting reviews, because we do recognise that people do need to have their care and support needs reviewed in order to identify their changing needs. So we have definitely made improvements around reviews, and we will continue to retain that focus on conducting those care and support reviews.
Happy with that. Councillor Howarth.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Ian and Senior Officer. Just a couple of quick questions. I picked up a statement made, staff feel supported by their managers and 64% will recommend working for MCC. I find 64% quite low. Am I wrong, or is that a high number, or is there something that in that statement is not right? Because I thought when you come to work for Monmouthshire County Council, I thought we would enthrall that, and so 64% I think is low. Do you have an explanation for that, or some statement, a reason for that? And then following on from Councillor Jones's there, it does look, some of the recommendations there, reference to collecting data, the systems that we have in place probably antiquated or probably outdated. Are we looking at mechanisms now for new systems that we collect the data, the input? Data's fine collected, it's what you do with it. So where you put it, do we have systems in place there? Is it investment we need to have a more robust or a more better way of putting that data in to collect it? Perhaps staff are collecting data and inputting it, but it may be being lost in some silo or something like that. I don't really know. And that just goes back to pages 10 and 11 on the report, and that's page 88 and 89, just saying that ongoing issues were identified, etc. And it may be we're addressing some of that. Maybe that we're falling behind in the system that we have, and we need to update that. Just a quick answer on that one as well. But well done. I think having recommendations, what we had in 22, implementing most of them and taking that forward with what's out there, with the pressures on Dom Care, all them departments do have pressures. I take great pleasure in thanking the staff for making sure that we as an authority are obliging and getting over that line in a lot of them recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howarth. The first part of the question, I felt that 64% isn't where we would want to be with a staff response to that. I think we were pleased. It could have been worse. But when we reflected on that, I think working within an adult social services environment is very pressured, and it has been really pressured over the last years. And I'm thinking, obviously coming out of COVID, but before that, working through COVID, it really did take a toll on people. And then coming out of COVID over the last 3 years, 22 to 25, it has been that relentless pressure of new pressures arising, especially through the hospital discharge, the very sort of way that's played out through the public media. So in a broad sense, it's a very challenging environment to be an adult social care practitioner at the moment. And I think then, layered on that, we have had to, for a number of reasons, go through a programme of change within adult social care, and that also is not easy for people. Some people find that easier than others. I think we've had to work hard to try to ensure that our workforce do feel valued, they do feel part of the journey, but it has been a pace of change that some people will have found difficult. So it's certainly been in our line of sights that we want to build and improve our ability to engage and communicate with staff in a really in a collaborative way that really takes on board some of their concerns. It's 64% is not as bad as it maybe could have been, but it's certainly not where we would ideally like to be. And I think if we probably stack that against other directorates within the local authority, we may just be a bit lower than we would want to be, and it's something that we are really have within our implementation plans going forward. It's about providing really good training and learning opportunities for staff, opportunities for workforce to come together, to talk through, to learn together, to work with partners. So there's lots of positives to build on, but we would like to we'd like to see an improved figure there. In terms of the systems and the data, two slightly separate elements to this. So our system that we currently have, Flow and Plant, we have recommissioned a new database, a social care case management system that we are in the process of implementing. We're implementing it in partnership with our Gwent neighbours, and this will be a significant step forward in terms of our system capability. It's a cloud-based system, so in terms of that sort of forward look, we're off an old system, really looking forward to how we can maximise that new system. It's a long implementation programme, as you can imagine, because of all the data migration and so forth that goes with system implementation, but that will really see us forward for the next years. And it's positive for us that it's a partnership arrangement with our other Gwent authorities. The data aspect of that, I mean, we have to submit a huge amount of data to Welsh Government, to CIW. We use data very actively within our service planning to drive where we need to focus resources to help us understand our service. You're absolutely right, it's not just what we capture, it's how we use that. And in terms of data capture, you know, there is always room for improvement, and often we find that sometimes, you know, as a practitioner, you know bits of your system, but you maybe not know the whole of your system, and it's how we really make sure that staff have the right information skills, we have the right business support in place to ensure that any piece of work that needs to be recorded is recorded in the right way. And we capture that accurate, as Jenny was saying. I think we probably undersell ourselves sometimes because we're not getting the accurate recording of data. So again, it's part of really making sure that the right training and support is in place to really capitalise on how we use data with accuracy, but also with fullness as well. So I hope those answered both.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, can I just ask a quick question on, is it called Mosaic, before I bring in Councillor Riley, sorry. Is that compatible with health staff? Or am I asking a big ask? And also, I'm just sort of wondering how you capture the sort of personal sort of stories, really, and if that's possible through that new system.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to check with Jenny whether she's happy for me to come in. But so in a nutshell, health are back out for their own procurement, for their own systems. But the key, so I can't really comment on that at the moment, but the key issue behind all our commissioning right across social care and health at the moment is around interoperability. That's where we're aiming for. So even if they don't purchase the same system behind the scenes, one of the criteria is can you operate within other systems? So it's very much at the forefront of all our thinking from a Welsh Government level down, because we're all trying to get as much integration between our services as we can. So I think if you ask the same question in a year, we could give you a much better answer, because health will have by then will have commissioned their system.
I'm just aware of the last meeting that we had when we had health staff with us, and there was the one member from Monmouth said that she had about 4 different systems.
At the moment, it's very clunky. Yeah.
I'm going to just ask, sorry, Councillor.
I wanted to come back on personal stories.
Jenny, did you want to come back in, talk about personal stories, or?
Yeah, I think it in the CIW inspection they talk about the biographies of people, and I think we do capture that very well in Monmouthshire, and within the new data capture system, there's a lot of work going on now around standardising our data capture processes across the region, and how we then formulate our assessment documentation, which will be standardised, and we hope to continue to do that, because it's an intrinsic part of what we do as part of the assessment process. So we already do it well in Monmouthshire, and that's been acknowledged, and we want to continue to do that going forward as well. And can I just also come back to Councillor Jones's question around reviews? I didn't have the data in front of me at the time, but I did acknowledge that our review performance has increased substantially, and just to say that the Welsh average of reviews, the percentage of reviews being completed is 60%, and at the end of the year we were at 70%. So we've done really well on our reviews, and I just wanted to give you the actual figure, which I didn't have in my head at the time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, I did think it was a very positive report, which was really obviously very pleasing. Sorry, I've got to keep changing my glasses. I can't see you if I can see this. I was concerned about the 64% recommended working for Monmouthshire Council, because Well, I also received an email last night that I know that all of you have, where Councillor Bond is asking where we are in the progress of the domiciliary care change. She understands that there have been no transfers, and from providers there are no new carers to transfer clients to. So I guess we're all a little bit concerned that with the changeover plan for the 19th of August, we want to know whether the plan is still achievable. The other question I wanted to ask was, 2.8 in the report says people are not being offered assessments if they're paying privately. And I'm afraid this has been very, very much my own experience. Yeah, I cannot. If you have power of attorney and you're not actually getting the assessment in your hand, you might have had a brief chat, but if you've got power of attorney and you're wanting a best interest assessment, it makes you feel very, very vulnerable if you're not getting those reports. So I just wondered, that's quite clearly something that's been raised within the Care Inspectorate Wales report.
Okay, thank you very much, Sue. Councillor Riley. So in terms of the achievability of the implementation plan for the changeover of care, we're still working through that. The 3 lot areas are in slightly different positions. One is, ready to go. 2 are giving a little bit more cause of concern, but we're working through those with the new provider agencies. And, there's going to be teething problems, but broadly speaking, we're on track and we're confident that we will be able to move forward with that, with the plan. I'd say that there's one area is, all good. 2 is a little bit more concern, but one of those less so than the others. So we're not. This is not one thing. There are 3 lots, and they're all quite different in where they are and how we're approaching the contingency arrangements and the planning with the providers. The main priority for us is to make sure that people continue to receive the care.
I think that's one of the points that was made in the email, that people are feeling a little bit in limbo. So if we can reassure them, then I'm happy to do that.
I mean, what we'd really encourage is if people are feeling concerned that they contact us directly so that we can talk it through. We have arrangements in place in the South to be able to respond to concerns that people raise, so we'd really encourage people to get in touch if they are feeling concerned. That would be our preferred method. The second question was around assessments for when individuals are commissioning their own care through private arrangements, and I think that had been, Jenny may be able to come in here in a bit more detail, but I think the CIW felt that even if people were going through those private arrangements, a more detailed assessment may be helpful for them in some circumstances, so that they have got that sense of the full exploration of what they're entitled to, what their rights are, what they may wish to consider. But I know that each individual case in a way can have its own nuance, can be complicated in some ways, and there will be many individuals that are out there commissioning their own care with the support of their families that never touch social care. So it is a few families, I think, that probably would benefit from that more in depth, even though they go on to commission their own private arrangements. I don't know if Jenny can add anything in there.
Yeah, I think that's what you've said. It is right, Jane. Where we do know that people have care and support needs, then we are able to offer an assessment, and we do. And within that assessment, there is a discussion around how that person wishes to have that care provided. So I suppose that's the conversation that happens at the point of the assessment. But there are a lot of people who commission their own care without ever coming to us, so it's quite a complex landscape, and people make their own arrangements very often. But if they do come to us with requests for support around assessments with care and support needs, then we will do whatever we can to support that process and facilitate those conversations.
Thank you, Jenny. Can we move on to Councillor Powell? She's not a member of the committee, so I'm going through committee members first, if that's all right.
Thank you very much. What I'm wondering is, there's all the work and help and that you do. Are there many people, elderly ones that are living on their own, that fall through the net, so to speak, that nobody realises they do need help and they're not quite sure who to ask for help and they try to manage? Do you find there's many like that?
Thank you, Councillor Powell. And it's always that concern, isn't it, that there's somebody out there who is not getting the help that they need or even are entitled to. And I think that's why there's a couple of things that we're doing to try and strengthen that. I mean, we've been talking about how we really get that early help and preventative approach out in communities. It takes a lot of partnership work through our third sector, our community organisations, but also our primary care health partners as well, to really try and ensure that we do know our population well and that we can rely on our third sector organisations, people who are out there with a footfall over the community, with neighbours and friends who really do help to alert us to if there are people in real need. And on the other side of that, we're trying to have plans in place to really strengthen the response at the front door. We're putting some additional posts in there. We're giving them some specific training to really make sure that people who then do come towards us, we have got a really robust way of engaging with them and making sure that they are, if they don't need formal support, that they are tapped into support within the community-based approach. But yes, it's always a worry. We don't know who might be out there, and we are dependent on counsellors, on friends, on community organisations, pharmacies, GPs, to really make sure that we're working together so that people are responded to if they're in need.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maureen. Councillor Brown?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just looking at the more detailed report, and at 3.4 it says, we know demand is outstripping supply, and with regard to domiciliary care, this has been the case for some time in MCC. We saw examples of people requiring care in their own homes to remain independent, but this not being available. In some cases, this leaves carers needing to provide more care than they can without a detrimental effect on their own well-being. There is no doubt the workforce is striving to support people, and we heard it is a frustration for them to assess people in knowledge there is no domiciliary care available. There is also the impact of the time and resource directed into managing the ongoing risk of people living without the care and support they need. Now, in an earlier paragraph, it goes on to say, despite a positive increase in the number of, this is 2.7, despite a positive increase in the number of people accepting the offer of direct payment, there is a lack of sufficient resource to process these requests. The local authority needs to prioritise increasing its resource to ensure people can access a direct payment in a timely way. We are aware of regional collaboration to see if the process of implementing a direct payment can be streamlined. I mean, basically, if an assessment is done and then there's no domiciliary care available, then it's likely that people will look to a direct payment and trying to provide their own carers. And I wanted to know about how the assessment process worked, because how do we ensure that those who are in that situation are, that's progressed more rapidly. And if, for example, somebody was in a situation whereby they provided that got their own source of care and then went for an assessment, how do the two link in? You know, do you have to have the assessment first and then, you know, accept the offer of direct payment? Or how does it work if you get to a point where, you know, a relative is, or somebody of a person needing support, you know, basically has to wait for an assessment, and then, you know, effectively their need is so great that they go for their own direct payment, but they don't necessarily want to keep this up, and they want a local authority assessment so that they can get the direct payment. Do you understand what I'm saying? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. And I just in response to the domiciliary care question, I mean, I wasn't sure if you were initially quoting from the 2022 report. Sorry if you weren't. I think we are in a very different situation within our domiciliary care provision now. We've brought our numbers of people waiting right down. We still have, you know, there is still a turnover, but our hours of waiting are right down, and our numbers of people waiting are down. I think even lower than pre-COVID levels. So I know, you know, we don't want anybody to wait any day, you know, for the care that they need. And as always, some areas are slightly harder to provide for than others, but by and large, we've significantly improved the wait for domiciliary care. And we've also tried to make sure that the brokerage for that doesn't fall solely to social workers, but is picked up by the commissioning team, because we really recognise that was a very frustrating situation for our social workers. So we've worked really hard to try and turn that around, and I think some improvements, always room for improvement, some improvement was picked up within the improvement check. I'm just double checking whether Jenny wants to come in at this point. I'll perhaps go on to the second element, which is around the direct payments. So if somebody's already got a private carer in place, and we come along and assess if things are deteriorating, that private carer will normally just continue as is. We will then have that assessment process and work out with the family what additional support they need, whether we need to take over some of the care, whether, you know, we just have that open conversation based on their own particular arrangements within their family and their own means. But when it comes to a direct payment, they would have to go through a specific assessment process. So we can say, yes, we believe that there's eligible needs there and they need, I don't know, 4 calls a day or something like that. If they want to convert some of that to a direct payment, we would refer them to the direct payments team, and there would be a specific assessment to ensure that they were suitable to receive direct payments, which is, it's not a lengthy process, but it is a fairly technical process. We need to know that they've got capacity, or that there's somebody in place who can manage that for them. We need to know that they've got the wherewithal to employ somebody, and that they're able to manage that process, because it can be experienced as a very empowering way of receiving care. For others, it can be experienced as quite burdensome and difficult. So we do need to do that double check. So you can't automatically have a direct payment. A direct payment would follow a social care assessment and then a technical assessment of whether a direct payment was suitable.
Yeah, thank you. So how long would be, it sounds like there are 2 assessments, sorry if I can come back, Chair, you know, the social care assessment and a direct payment assessment. How long would that process normally take? Because I was quoting from the 2022 report, because obviously in a sense what we're doing is comparing what it says there with what you're doing now, so I thought it was relevant really. Thank you.
I don't know whether Jenny is able to come in on length of times, but we prioritise assessments as well. So an urgently prioritised assessment would be allocated quicker than a non-urgent. And I can't remember the timescales that we aim for within an assessment process, and I'm not sure whether Jenny has got that.
No, I think it's difficult to give a clear timescale because all of our assessments are prioritised in accordance with other demands in the service. But once somebody has been assessed as having eligible needs, because that's the first bit, then the direct payment team, what we have done is we have looked at their processes and we have streamlined, and they don't experience long waits for the direct payment team to go out and do their assessment. So the timescale is minimal. Once somebody says that they're interested in a direct payment, then there's a conversation that happens, and that formal assessment then around all of the things that need to be in place to support that direct payment are put in place fairly quickly. So, I'm not hearing that there are long waits for the team to go out and do those, have those conversations with people. But as I say, it's hard to put a direct timescale on it.
Yeah, thank you. I think, can I come back again? Yeah, I think that's, helpful to know, because obviously, if you've got a carer who's looking after somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia, they're under a lot of stress anyway. And then, if they have an assessment and they say there's no domiciliary care available, but you can try and see if you can commission your own and through a direct payment, all of these things, add to the stress of the carer in trying to look after the particular person concerned. So obviously delays in the system, do cause extra stress for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I can't see any more hands up. So can I just finish with a couple of questions, if I may? Councillor Crook and I were fortunate to go down to Chepstow Hospital and have a look at the assistive technology rooms, which were really, after the seminar that we were given, I think it's if anybody gets a chance to go down there, it's really interesting to see how technology can support people to live independent and fulfilled lives. So that was great, and that's quite a development, isn't it, that people can book in a time and actually discuss with a member of staff about what might suit their needs. I'm also interested in how we've grown the micro carers, if we have. What are the kind of numbers of micro carers? And I'm also really pleased that some of the gaps in assessments for carers is being sorted out, because unless you actually capture that data in the assessment, there are people out there that are really struggling that could be supported and have got sort of needs, but their needs are being overlooked, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Strong. Yes, we're super excited about the development of AI within the service. Not AI, assistive tech. Sorry, I've been in another meeting where we were talking about AI. Assistive tech within the service, it can really transform people's lives and maximise their independence. And the fact that we've got the 2 sites in Chepstow, and there's another site, I think it might be in Monavale. That people can go and explore, experiment. It becomes more normal, so they can get earlier in their care journey rather than when it's feeling too late. And we are close partnership with colleagues in housing have really helped to bridge that gap as well between social care and what can be achieved through assistive technology for people is brilliant, and it can really complement a wider care package as well as actually mitigating the need for care packages. We've really built in that review of whether or not assistive tech can work within our reablement processes as well. So it's really part and parcel. It's been a really good thing to happen within our service. And micro-carers, yes, that continues to go from strength to strength using the portal. I think we're up to at least 50 carers. It's really, again, something that's really allowed people to, sort of manage their own care and support needs really at an early stage. We see it as really part and parcel of our preventative offer to really be able to signpost to very person-centred, place-based carers that can really work with people early on, and that builds relationships. It builds sort of somebody's ease with having care and support provided to them if their conditions progress. So we're very pleased. We're working in close partnership with other local authorities who also have gone down the microcarer route, and with Welsh Government as well, just to make sure that we've got all the right mechanisms in place to continue to support that microcarer journey. And the third one?
Because that was one of the gaps in the first report.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, I know Jenny may well want to come on this. We've given it a lot of thought, and I think our way forward for this is to really try to integrate the carers assessment process within our wider processes, so that it feels not sort of separate and an add-on, but actually really integrated into the process, especially where both the carer and the cared for are known to us. There will be carers that pass through the carer service that we don't know the people that they're caring for, but when it's both, we really want to get that integrated approach, which I don't think we've quite achieved yet. I can see Jenny nodding, so I'll just pause a minute to see if she wants to come in.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. This is work that we have identified as needing to have a bit more work done, and we've got a real opportunity with some of the developments around our front door, because there is this overlap and interface between the assessment for the cared for person and the assessment for the carer, and currently our carers team are focused on undertaking assessments for carers that are not known to us, but we want to integrate those processes much more effectively so that we're not losing people. And we've got a huge number of people on our carers mailing list, so we are getting to people, but as far as our processes are concerned, we haven't quite got it right, so we are able to identify the carer within the cared for and make sure that we separate out those services effectively. And of course there is overlap, because any respite service for the cared for person is a service for the carer as well. So I think we just need to do a bit more work that we do have in scope to be able to identify more clearly those pathways and make sure that we're not missing anything. And also, as far as the inspection report identified, the need to really clarify and bring out within our assessment, where those outcomes are co-produced, so we can evidence that really working with carers to identify what they need within that whole package of care and support.
Councillor Brown, have you got a quick question? Or?
Sorry, did I not put my hand down? Sorry.
Right. So have we got anybody else that wants to contribute? If not, can I say a big thank you to both Jane, Jenny and Ian for coming along and providing us with a really interesting report this morning, and it's sort of clarified some of the concerns that possibly some of us had. So thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So we now move on to the forward work plan. Do you want to do it? I've lost it.
Yeah, just to draw your attention, Chair, it's been a long meeting today, but the next meeting is 30th of September, and we've got two items for Councillor Chandler and Jane, which is the approach to wellbeing and prevention, and a whole authority approach, and then we've got the community meals work. You will have had like an email. No? Oh, you will be having an email with a sort of update on where they are with community meals at the moment, just ahead of when you scrutinise it. But that'll be your next regular meeting on the 30th of September. The Chair just wants to draw to your attention, we had a joint meeting with Public Services Scrutiny Committee last week, and there was an offer there for members to go and visit Seven View. The officer suggested this week, but he hasn't had any feedback from members about this week, it seems a bit short notice, so I don't know if you want to do that through August or whether you want to wait into September. So I'll take your views on that. And also dementia services, members wanted to visit one of the memory assessment teams, also to go to a dementia hub and an older adult inpatient ward for dementia. So there's offers from the health board for members to be involved in going to visit any of those as they see fit, but please can I have any sort of expression of interest, because it's probably not something you'd want to do en masse.
Do we need to do that now, or can we email you?
I'd like an indication of time scale. Do they want to do it
Before the summer, or?
Yeah.
No, September.
Okay.
Or you want to do it before the summer?
Yeah. I don't get to go away.
Oh, I think it was the homeless place.
Yeah, they were different. Yeah.
Can I just clarify, the visit to Severn View is not Severn View Park, the care home, but it's actually the homelessness
Yes. It was arising.
Yeah, it was arising from the... Yeah, thanks for that, Ian. I would really like to go along to that, but I'm not sure whether this week is...
Next week.
This week? Thursday or Friday? What do we think?
Chair, I don't mind going, but I think I would like to leave till September if we could, or when we're a bit more time. I'm so busy.
I think with Severn View, as I understand it, the tenants will be moving in, so going in September might be difficult, you know, in terms of sort of privacy and things.
Ian Baker suggested.
Oh, I think that sounds even more interesting.
Okay. Well, shall we go back to Ian and say, can we leave it a couple of weeks? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if residents are in, they would be able to supply us with some feedback, surely, if they didn't mind.
Yeah.
You don't want to see it.
Chair, can I just step in there? I've written 2 items down here from the planner. As you know, I really take more interest in the planner and lots of things in life. I've got in community meals, which is 15th, so we're going to discuss that then in our next meeting. The other one, I've got Mon clusters on the forward planner, which is must be something to do with the cluster of schools in Monmouthshire, Will McLean. Just a second. Review of Mon cluster and proposed stationary consultation, 15th of October. That is Cabinet. That came on in March. Whose select committee is to just have a look at the Mon cluster, see where we are with it? Is that us, or has anybody else taken it up?
I'm informed by Hazel it's...
Education's P&O.
It's perform what's an overview?
Pardon?
P&O
okay,
is the committee, yeah.
Cruise company.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And the other thing I've just taken up on the planner, which I just need to highlight, and I as chair, I would like you to make sure and write to the SLT, Senior Leadership Team. In last week, we had a document come to individual cabinet member decision, ICMD. It was to do with the Lloyd's Tour of Britain Stage 5, Pontypool to Tolvine. I'm a keen cyclist, so not that I have any objections of spending money, but that was put on the planner on the 2nd of July, and it was a decision made on the 23rd, so nobody had actually opportunity of actually looking at it. And where I'm going with that, there was another one before it as well, on the same date, Welsh Church Funding Group, I ain't got a problem with, but they have to recognise, Cabinet and SLT, that actually you're opening yourself to call-ins. How many times do I have to say it? How many times do members have to say it? Make sure it goes on the planner early, because if you don't, you can end up with call-ins. And Councillor Chandler knows all about that one. So could I just make sure you as Chair of Hazel inform that the leaders of SLT are well aware that we are looking at the planner and to make sure that they give us notice. Thank you, Chair.
Just to say that I did take that forward, I raised that one, and I was informed that there was an embargo around and announcing on that one. There were reasons why it couldn't be discussed, but we've taken forward the points that you've made about the planners, and SLT are working to resolve that.
I appreciate that, but that's a cop-out where I'm sitting, because we do have a closed session as well, and we are confidentially by the Constitution as members to make sure that. So can I go back to that then? So that came in ICMD. If one member or three members here, you may chairs or three members, four members, they could have called that in, whether it's embargo or not. So I'd like actually somebody to look at that and say, well, there's an embargo. What is the process for the embargo then, as members? Because rightly so, we could have actually called that in, and we could have sat here and deferred that, and as we all know, that decision has to be done straight away. So maybe embargo, but it doesn't help, does it?
I think Hazel's going to raise that with SLT, okay? So our next meeting is on the 30th. Oh, we've got the joint one next Monday with health, haven't we, about Neville Hall? Yeah, the public services meeting, joint meeting. And then our next meeting is on the 30th, and I will email people around with the information that I've had about the community meals. Wow, we've got to behave then. Louise?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just concerned that, and I did raise it in full council, I'm not a member of this committee, but I am concerned that you're not looking at the learner traveller measure that's being amended by the Welsh Government. It's a 2014 document on home to school transport, and the closing date of that is the 3rd of September, and it's going to update the home to school transport to cover the years 27 to 28, and I don't know whether the committee wants to look at it or ask the Welsh Government for an extension in order to do so, but I think in a couple of years to come, looking at that document, there'll be a lot of concern about it. Thank you.
Given that the timescale is so tight, I don't think it's anything that this committee could do, but I guess individual elected members are able to express their concerns, aren't they? Thank you. Well, thanks everybody for their time and patience, and I think we've had a lively discussion, so thank you very much. Bye.